The story begins at Seirai Academy, where we are introduced to the protagonist, Alisa Mikhailovna. Her father is Russian, so she has a peculiar name and is often called Alia. As she passes through the academy entrance, she attracts the attention of others. After advancing a bit, she stops when a boy greets her with an air of grandeur, introducing himself as Ando, a second-year fool. Alia returns the greeting out of respect, and Ando then comments that his sister has spoken of her often and he wanted to meet her. Because of this, he suggests they have lunch together, but before he finishes the question, Alia responds with a no. This surprises Ando, who mentions that she is a cold woman. He then proposes exchanging phone numbers, but Alia apologizes, saying she has no interest in him at all. This leaves Ando paralyzed with shock, and she takes the opportunity to leave without saying much more, but not before informing him that the necklace he's wearing is against the rules. After that, the students begin talking about what just happened, since she rejected Ando, the most popular guy in school, without any trouble, leading them to believe she has very high standards. Shortly after, Alia arrives at her classroom, 1B, and upon reaching her seat, she greets the other protagonist, her classmate Masachika Kuze. He doesn't respond because he's sleeping at his desk, so she kicks his chair to wake him up abruptly. She asks if he stayed up late watching anime, and seeing that he did, she tells him he never learns, as he doesn't sleep well to watch anime, and then sleeps in class, not understanding the point of it. Kuze tells her that the anime ended at 1, and he spent 2 hours talking about it with a friend. She thinks he's crazy for doing that, to which he explains that if professing his love for a work regardless of place or time is the definition of madness, he will admit he is mad. At that moment, Kuze starts yawning when he hears something she said, causing her to blush slightly. When he asks her what it was, she simply responds that it was nothing, that she just said he is pathetic, clearly intending to annoy him. Then, he realizes he forgot his chemistry book, so he pushes his desk together with hers to use her book. As the class progresses, Kuze keeps yawning, prompting Alia to poke him slightly with her pencil, making him let out a stifled yelp. Because of this, the teacher thinks Kuze wants to answer his question, and having no idea, she shows him the wrong answer to embarrass him. Alia doesn't even bother to hide her intentions, smiling as she sees that annoying him is working. This time, she repeats what she said earlier, but in Russian. Kuze, knowing the language, understands that she said, "How adorable you are." Immediately, Kuze gets annoyed by it, and without stopping her teasing, Alia now says, "Look at you, you're as red as a baby." Leaving Kuze silent and noticeably blushing. At this point, we are given a glimpse into Kuze's past, where he often played with a Russian girl who lived near his grandfather's house when he was a child. He believes that during that time, he was able to learn the language, becoming quite proficient in understanding spoken Russian, though he never thought it would lead to such an absurd situation. This Russian beauty says sweet things to him only in Russian, and he understands her. If he admitted that he understands, she would faint from embarrassment, so he prefers not to tell her the truth. At the end of the class, Alia sees Kuze taking out his phone and reminds him that, aside from emergencies and for reference use, cell phones are prohibited on school grounds. To this, he responds that he can use it because it's an emergency. The free pool ends in 10 minutes. This does not make her very happy, wondering how he can do that near someone from the student council, referring to herself. When he ignores her, she confiscates it abruptly, noticing that he has won a character named Tsukuyomi in the game. Alia knows this is a reference to the moon goddess in Japanese mythology, but doesn't understand why her hair is gray and not black. Kuze thinks it's a nod to the moon, but the point is that she's very cute. She doesn't look very happy, but despite that, she returns his phone. While Kuze is delighted because he got Tsukuyomi, Alia speaks in Russian again, saying, "I also have gray hair, you unfaithful piece of trash." Clearly, he gets nervous about what he just heard, but pretends to be clueless and asks her what she said. Alia responds that she called him a game addict, making him turn to her to point out that it was disrespectful. He argues that she can't call him an addict when he doesn't spend money, and that is an affront to the whales, the true addicts. After that, Kuze goes to the cafeteria with his friends, and after a few minutes, they see the girls who are members of the student council arriving. Yukizo, Alia, and her older sister, Maria Mikhailovna, who is called Masha. Kuze's friends Takeshi and Hikaru comment on how beautiful the sisters are, with Takeshi showing more interest than usual, although Hikaru thinks Masha has a boyfriend because she keeps rejecting those who confess to her by saying she has one. Kuze adds that even if she didn't have a boyfriend, Takeshi wouldn't have a chance. Takeshi complains about this and then talks about the other options, Yuki and Alia. He thinks Yuki is engaged since she comes from a wealthy family, while Alia only talks to Kuze, making him quite jealous. At that moment, Yuki makes eye contact with Kuze, giving a mischievous smile, and approaches their table to ask if she can sit with them. Kuze agrees, and the others also consent, though Takeshi is a bit nervous about the situation. Alia also sits with them, and as Yuki eats her ramen, she begins talking about the flavor with Kuze. Seeing them like this, Alia asks if they are friends, to which Yuki responds that they have known each other since they were kids, having attended the same school since kindergarten. After that, Kuze asks the two if they are friends, to which Yuki replies that they are in the process, and that she would at least like to be friends with Elisa. This leaves Alia a bit embarrassed, who mentions that she doesn't think being her friend will be much fun, though she is somewhat convinced by Yuki's kindness. Suddenly, Takeshi gets up to leave with Hikaru, as they have finished eating, but before leaving, Takeshi whispers to Kuze that this is too cheerful for him. Now Kuze is left with Yuki next to him and Alia in front. At that moment, Yuki moves her chair closer to his, asking if he has considered her offer to join the council. He responds that he has told her 1,000 times that he is not interested, but Yuki thinks he would fit well with her and Elisa. Besides, he already has experience as vice president. Seeing that Alia doesn't know about this, she explains that when they were in middle school, she was the president and Kuze was the vice president. Although he mentions that he only did it because she asked him, and that each candidate required a partner in the elections. Later, they head outside and Yuki says goodbye, while Alia tells Kuze that she's surprised they get along so well, because she didn't think any girl would want to be his friend. This confuses Kuze a bit, who corrects her by pointing out that he already has one, clearly referring to her. Alia is slightly taken aback by this, but quickly acknowledges that they are indeed friends. She then remembers she has things to do for the student council, so she leaves, visibly cheerful on her way. We are then shown a flashback of Kuze's past, where he played in the park with that girl from his childhood, communicating only in Russian. Kuze wasn't very fluent in the language, but she helped him by correcting him when necessary. They enjoyed watching the sunset together, and as they said goodbye, she approached to kiss him on the cheek. Kuze wakes up, now on a new day, having dreamed of that vivid memory. He comments that he learned Russian like crazy, because he wanted to talk to her, but he has forgotten her name. Arriving early to the classroom, he starts cleaning since it's his and Alia's turn to take care of the classroom maintenance. When she arrives, Kuze notices she's dirty, and she explains that a truck splashed her on the way. It's partly her fault for being so close to the road, but she has spare socks, so it's not a problem. She then brings up the topic of him being in the student council with Yuki in middle school, asking if he doesn't want to join the student council now. He responds once again that he doesn't. And that's when Alia is about to propose something but then changes her mind, and says nothing. Suddenly, she starts taking off her socks right there, prompting Kuze to quickly look away. When Alia notices this, she can't help but smile broadly, crossing one leg over the other. She asks if he could bring her a sock from her locker since she can't go now that she has taken it off, urging him to hurry. When Kuze brings her the sock, Alia asks him to put it on for her, which alarms him greatly. She explains that it's a reward for bringing it to her, and thought it would be a nice prize for someone like him. Suddenly she says in Russian, "It's also a reward for me." This makes Kuze wonder why her affectionate gestures in Russian surprise him, thinking that perhaps her obsession with being perfect is exhausting her, and she's using him as a stress relief. While Kuze is distracted, she asks what's wrong, and he only responds that he wanted to know what she said. Alia explains that she called him a coward, then tries to put the sock on by herself, but Kuze stops her, taking the initiative, when he suddenly bends down and grabs her foot. She gets very nervous, and exclaims that she's not ready. As Kuze tries to put the sock on her, she keeps moving and making strange noises. Once he's done, his hand accidentally brushes against Alia's inner thigh, and out of embarrassment, she gives him a hard kick. Later, Kuze begs for her forgiveness, to which she agrees without much trouble, apologizing for kicking him, but when she hears him say it's fine, she moves closer to check on him herself. Quickly, Kuze nervously steps back, saying that he should be the one thanking her for teaching him something precious. Hearing this, Alia realizes that he saw her panties when she lifted her leg to kick him. Unable to take it back, Kuze bows and thanks her for showing him something so wonderful. Without giving him time to finish talking, Alia gives him a solid punch and starts insulting him in Russian, truly offended and embarrassed. After that, Alia starts running away through the school, and Kuze doesn't hesitate to chase her. After 10 minutes of pursuit, he takes advantage of their exhaustion to apologize, although she comments that she also shares part of the blame. At that moment, Kuze kneels in front of her, offering her a canned drink and asking her to accept this offering. But Alia, being childish, thinks it's a rather poor performance. Kuze knows she loves Shiroko as she's always drinking it, and because of this detail, she ends up accepting his offering. This is when she lets out a small smile, asking in Russian if he wants a sip. Such a question puts Kuze on high alert, thinking that an indirect kiss event has come out of nowhere, and if he says yes, it might actually happen. Still, he continues to pretend he doesn't understand the language, so he asks her what she just said. She responds that there's nothing like something sweet after exercising, which is what she mentioned in Russian. Once again, she takes the opportunity to tease him with that wicked smile, and for having missed the chance for that indirect kiss, Kuze can't help but feel frustrated. On a new school day, Kuze heads to the storage room to meet Yuki, who had asked for his help in organizing the school supplies. Seeing Kuze not quite lively, Yuki requests him to be more polite, which prompts Kuze to jest with her. Moments later, Alia approaches and mentions how well the two get along, surprising Kuze as he didn't know she was there. They then start working together to tidy up the storage room, with Kuze handling the heavier items. After a few minutes, Yuki asks him to fetch something from the top shelf where board games and cards are stored. She explains that these games are used for school festivals and were also played during the new council meeting, where technically she emerged victorious. Next, Alia suddenly remarks in Russian that she also wants attention. Обратите внимание. Обратите внимание. Kuze shudders upon hearing this, and Alia continues to repeat in Russian that he should come with her. Even laughing a bit, unaware that Kuze understands perfectly, he avoids commenting on it, only complaining that she has no shame. Later, as they exit the storage room, Yuki and Alia thank Kuze for his assistance, acknowledging how helpful he was. Shortly after, Ayato Sakaki, the student council president, arrives. He introduces himself to Kuze upon learning they finished quickly with his help, or so Yuki repeats. Ayato Sakaki compliments Kuze, mentioning he's heard much about his talent, while Kuze simply thanks him, recognizing Ayato Sakaki's imposing aura, and understanding why he holds the position of student council president. After that, Kuze tries to leave, but Ayato Sakaki asks him to wait, feeling it would be a shame for him to leave empty-handed after helping with the storage room. Ayato offers to treat him to dinner, and Yuki adds that he wouldn't have anything to eat at home anyway. Hearing this, Ayato asks Yuki how she knows about Kuze's home situation, to which she explains they've known each other since childhood. Ayato then invites both of them, and with no other choice, Kuze reluctantly accepts. Later they arrive at a cafe where Ayato expresses surprise at how quickly they finished organizing the storage room, thinking it would take them all morning. Yuki attributes this to Kuze's incredible abilities. He handles physical work and paperwork effortlessly, excels as a master of ceremonies, and negotiates skillfully. Ayato remarks that Yuki doesn't usually praise someone so much and asks Kuze if he'd consider joining the council. Kuze politely declines, stating he wants nothing more to do with student councils, despite Yuki's continued insistence. However, Ayato hints that Yuki doesn't have a guaranteed presidency, as there are other candidates including Alia. When Kuze looks at Alia, she confirms this, mentioning she'll be competing against Yuki next year. After this revelation, Ayato leaves with Yuki, and Kuze walks with Alia for a while. Within minutes, she tells him it's fine for him to leave her and heads home alone. Upon reaching his own home, Kuze is greeted by Yuki, who asks if he escorted Alia home. He questions why she's there, and she explains she'll be spending the night with him. Kuze expresses some discomfort about Yuki pretending at school that they're childhood friends, but she argues it's not a lie because a childhood friend is someone you get along with as you grow up, which includes siblings. Therefore, being a childhood friend, an otaku buddy and a sister can all be true at the same time. Yuki surprises Kuze by appearing above him in his bed, greeting him good morning as soon as he opens his eyes. He playfully remarks that the morning isn't as good anymore. She explains that his little sister came to wake him up with affection, implying he should appreciate it. When her words don't quite have the desired effect, she jokes about planning to jump into his bed next time and tug his leg to wake him up. Kuze asks her to get off him, and Yuki teasingly asks why, playfully insinuating whether he's uncomfortable. Yuki encourages him to get up, mentioning they have a nice day planned. Later, they watch a romance movie where Yuki enthusiastically shows her fandom. However, Kuze eventually redirects her towards shopping, as that was the real purpose of their outing together. While browsing clothes, they discuss having glimpsed something shiny. Yuki mentions her knack for recognizing faces, referring to their discovery of Alia, who has been discreetly observing them from a distance. Yuki confidently walks over to Alia, an action that surprises Kuze. As Yuki approaches her, Alia becomes visibly nervous, not expecting to be caught. She explains she saw them a short while ago but hadn't found the right moment to approach them. Though both Kuze and Yuki are aware she's been observing them since they entered the mall. Alia then reveals she's there to shop for clothes and casually suggests they grab lunch together. Kuze interrupts, Curious if they plan to invite Alia to that restaurant, Yuki asks him what's wrong with that since she was looking forward to going. Kuze clarifies that it's not that, but if they're going with Alia, they should go somewhere else. Yuki then asks if she can handle spicy food, as they were planning to go to a restaurant that serves very spicy ramen. Alia assures them she has no issues with spice, but Kuze warns her that this ramen is extremely spicy. Nonetheless, Alia insists she'll go, and so the three of them end up at the restaurant, whose entrance alone is imposing. Moreover, the name of the place is Infernal Pot. Alia's expression upon seeing the entrance is one of shock. Once seated at the table, Alia is puzzled by the menu, as each dish has a bizarre name. Yuki explains that the Infernal Blood Pool is a ramen with red soup, and is actually the mildest option on the menu. Seeing both Kuze and Yuki order the same dish, she decides to go with that as well. While waiting for their food, Alia mentions to Yuki that she's dressed more masculinely today, which surprises Yuki. Yuki explains that since there's no class today, she wanted a change. Sensing Alia glancing at Kuze, Yuki casually mentions that she was with him in bed this morning. This causes Kuze to spit out the water he was drinking. Yuki continues, explaining that since she wanted something different today, she borrowed the shirt she's wearing from him. Alia turns to Kuze, asking him to explain. Nervously, he tells her that Yuki showed up at his house, barged into his room and jumped into his bed. At that moment, their dishes arrive and Alia is startled by their appearance. Despite this, she gathers her courage and takes the first bite, but moments later, her expression changes due to the spiciness. When Kuze asks if she's okay, Alia insists she's fine, pretending she can handle it. Meanwhile, Kuze comments that it's delicious, and Yuki remarks that the chili peppers really enhance all the ingredients. Alia, on the other hand, begins complaining in Russian, expressing her suffering. Queen Mama. Seeing her like this, Kuze tells her she doesn't have to force herself, but Alia insists that she said it was delicious and continues eating. Alia continues to grumble in Russian, even calling out to her mother in distress. Yuki mentions she's pleased to know she also enjoys spicy food. She also tells Alia that at this restaurant they can use the tear of hell to make it even spicier, asking if she wants to try it. Kuze notices Yuki's mischievous expression and realizes she's doing this on purpose. Under pressure, Alia agrees to try it, thinking a drop won't kill her. Once she adds the liquid to her ramen and takes another bite, as expected, she lets out a loud scream because she can't handle it. Later on, Kuze accompanies Alia to the park, explaining that Yuki had to leave because she said she needed to buy something. He is concerned that Alia doesn't seem well, and when he notices an ice cream parlor, he heads over to buy her an ice cream. This greatly lifts Alia's spirits, as the ice cream is truly delicious. It's then that Kuze asks her why she wants to be president of the council, and she responds that she wants to do it because she desires it, adding that she doesn't need anyone else and will find someone to help her with the vice presidency since she needs another person to complement her in that role. She mentions that she wishes it could be him, albeit said in Russian. This doesn't put a happy expression on Kuze's face, who recalls unpleasant moments associated with the position. Changing the subject, Alia asks if he has plans afterward, to which he replies, no. Upon hearing this, Alia then asks him to help her, as she wanted to buy clothes. Kuze asks if she's sure about that since a guy helping a girl pick out clothes is quite intimate. However, upon seeing Alia's reaction, he remembers she doesn't have any friends to go shopping with. Because of that, he changes his mind and agrees to help her. Once they're in a store, Alia asks him why he started behaving nicely with her, thinking maybe he doesn't believe she's capable of becoming president. With that in mind, she becomes furious, not wanting him to underestimate her, deciding to drive him crazy with her parade to see who's in charge. When she's about to change, she thinks he can hear her changing clothes, so before she does, she asks him to move away a little more. Once she puts on the clothes to try them on, she comments they look very good on her, but before opening the curtains, she considers the possibility that he might not react when he sees her. Within seconds, she opens and asks him what his opinion is, to which Kuze responds that they fit her very well, and that this set enhances her elegance and femininity, making her look more beautiful than usual. Alia only listens to that, closes the curtains, and crouches down, very embarrassed, wondering what that was, because he filled her with praise. In response, Kuze flops down on the floor in embarrassment, wondering how she always manages to do that to him. When Alia recovers, she mentions she didn't think he could compliment a girl, asking if he's used to it. This reminds him of Yuki and how today her outfit was quite masculine, so Alia tries on that style of clothing, and when she steps out to ask for his opinion, he tells her she looks great now, more attractive than adorable, and he thinks it suits her well. Alia tries hard to hide how much his compliments affect her, showing him other outfits, each receiving kind words from Kuze. She enjoys this, not tiring of receiving compliments from him. In an outfit she finds somewhat daring but believes he'll like. She leans forward to ask him what he thinks, revealing her more confident side. Upon realizing Yuki is beside him, she comments that Alia is very daring, and Kuze agrees quietly. Alia closes the curtain and, in privacy, asks the ground to swallow her up. What's Tim have Prafalis? Yuki asks Kuze what she said, and he replies that apparently she just wants to disappear. Later, they are on the train, where Alia continues to be lost in her thoughts. Minutes later, they say goodbye when they reach the station, and when alone she wonders what she was thinking wearing such a short skirt. It's then she ponders why the two of them got off at the same station. Now we see Alia arriving home, where she is greeted with a hug by her sister Masha. She notices that Alia is feeling down, so she asks if something happened. Despite Alia saying no, Masha knows it's a lie because her sister can't fool her. Due to her persistence, Alia explains once again that nothing happened, and that she just ran into Kuze and his childhood friend. With this, Masha already knows that the problem is because of him, since he upsets Alia whenever he is involved. Alia does not deny this, so her sister takes the opportunity to ask her if she likes Kuze. Alia responds that she doesn't know what she is thinking, but they have no relationship and are just friends. Instead, Masha asks her how they became friends since she was supposed to hate slackers who don't care about anything. Alia agrees. Although there are reasons behind this, it takes us 6 years into the past, where Alia is in Vladivostok, a city in Russia. Back then, her school teacher instructed them to form groups and write a report about local shops. Alia's group divided to investigate different stores, and she was eager to excel with this report. After working hard visiting the shops and drafting the report, she asked her groupmates about their progress. One of them apologized, saying he hadn't started yet, but assured her not to worry as they still had a week left. This angered Alia, but they continued to discuss how easy this task would be since a clothing store sells clothes and a bakery sells bread. At that moment, they read her report and saw that she had written too much, so they suggested she take it easier. What followed was a heated argument and the group split up. When the grading day arrived, Alia did not achieve the best report. She acknowledged that she was wrong to expect anything from others, feeling that no one shared her determination, and therefore she had to do everything herself. Time passed, and the first day of classes at the high school she is now in arrived. Here, the students were surprised that she managed to pass the transfer exam, which is so difficult. Starting the class, Alia noticed that her new classmate Kuze was asleep in his seat. After waking him up, the two formally got to know each other. As the school hours went by, she realized that he was quite lazy, and that even prestigious schools like this one had such people. Later, it is seen that there are 14 days left until the school festival, where Alia stays late making the curtains. When her classmates say goodbye to her, they mention that it's just a festival, and therefore, there's no need to take it so seriously. Alia hears this, noticing that the same thing has repeated from her past. She thinks that she just wants to do her best and not give up. And if she ends up alone, she doesn't care. Suddenly, the classroom door opens, and it's Kuze, who mentions that he knew he would find her there. He then advises Alia to go home, and that they will fix this together tomorrow. In response, she tells him not to worry about her, and that she will go home once she finishes a few more things. Kuze tells her that the craft club agreed to help them with the costumes, showing a permission slip to stay overnight. He is confident that this will motivate even the least motivated, and he managed to get this because he asked the former student council president to pull some strings and told the craft club that the boys would help if they saw it as an opportunity to show off in front of the girls. He is sure the boys will join in, and so he advises her again to go home, as she doesn't have to do everything alone. These last words change Alia's demeanor, and she tells him that she will participate, but she wants it to be a good attraction. She doesn't want it to be half done and refuses to compromise on quality. However, she knows she says this out of ego, and understands that it doesn't matter as much to them as it does to her, which is why she bears all the effort, not believing that what she does is wrong. After a few seconds, Kuze tells her that she is just putting effort into the wrong thing because one person can't build an attraction alone. A school festival is for everyone to work together, and if they want the best attraction, the best thing is to focus on how to motivate others. Seeing her reaction, he mentions that he knew she would get upset if he said that. Then he apologizes, as he knows she works hard and appreciates it. Alia doesn't say anything, just takes her things to leave and go home. As she walks down the hallway, she wonders what's wrong with him, repeating this several times. As the days go by, Alia gradually sees that the whole class is putting a lot of effort into organizing the festival, and she begins to integrate a bit more with her classmates. When the festival finally arrives, their haunted house attraction is a success. Later, they win the prize for the best attraction, something that leaves Alia astonished. Then comes the festival dance, where in the afternoon the students spend time in the school courtyard. At that moment, Alia meets Kuze, who comments that this academy is sometimes very old-fashioned, as he doesn't understand why they celebrate a traditional dance. In the end, Alia asks if she can sit next to him, to which he agrees, though he asks why she isn't dancing, as surely everyone wants to dance with her. He supposes that she doesn't know how to dance. But she tells him that's rude, and that she did ballet when she was little, so this simple dance wouldn't be a problem for her, and she turned everyone down, saying she doesn't know why she really doesn't want to dance, but it wasn't hard to get rid of them since she's used to it. Kuze mentions that he wouldn't expect any less from the Ice Queen, and seeing that she doesn't understand what he means, he tells her that others gave her that nickname. Alia says she finds it unamusing, asking him to stop joking. He apologizes for that. Then Alia explains that the problem is with the title, princess, as it sounds like she's a spoiled rich girl. It's true that she was born with more beauty and talent than most, but she's never been content with just that, and it bothers her that people only see that and not her hard work. After listening to her, Kuze tells her that he won't call her that. Then Alia thanks him, admitting he was right and she was not. If she had tried to do everything alone, she would never have experienced the festival this way. She regrets taking it out on him the other time, and although Kuze downplays it, it still bothers her, and she wishes to apologize and repay him in any way she can. She asks if he wants anything, warning him that he can't refuse. After thinking for a few seconds, Kuze asks if there isn't a Russian tradition where people give each other special nicknames. In response, she tells him that her family calls her Alia, and this makes Kuze insist that she let him call her that. A few seconds later, the boys from the class arrive, repeatedly asking her to dance, but as they become too insistent and Alia's rejections don't work, Kuze apologizes to them and clarifies the situation. He takes her hand and leads her to the center of the courtyard. In the next few seconds, Alia thinks that her heart is about to burst, all because of him. He tells her that he wants to see for himself if what she said about the dance being easy for her is true, and Alia happily agrees to show him. Alia finishes telling this entire story to her sister, who takes it as a beautiful love story, something Alia disagrees with. Then, Masha mentions that she and Sakun were the same way, showing that she has a photo of him in a locket. However, when she keeps talking about it, Alia tells her to leave if she's just going to brag. Now we switch to Kuze, who goes to the student council to cover for Yuki, and here he meets Masha, Alia's sister and the council secretary. When she approaches, she suddenly takes his hand, but upon seeing him up close, she freezes. The next thing she does is ask his name. He responds that his name is Kuze. Masha ponders this name, and after a long few seconds she apologizes, explaining that she was very happy to meet a friend of Alia. After that, she asks if they can leave now, though she says it in Russian, causing Kuze to pretend he doesn't understand the language, asking her what she said. Masha takes a moment to respond, turning to clarify the meaning of her words. Now the two of them head to a store, as Kuze has to accompany her to help with some shopping. While choosing an air freshener for the office, Masha suddenly gets distracted by a stuffed animal that resembles Alia. This gives her an idea and she decides to buy plush toys that resemble the council members. Masha picks a lion with glasses for the president, and Kuze can't help but admit it looks a lot like him. Even so, he asks her not to buy the plush toys. So Masha complains a bit about it, limiting herself to buying the kitty for herself since it's adorable. Kuze agrees to this but tells her it's better to have it charged separately, as Alia, being the treasurer, will get angry with her. Later, the two walk down the street, and Kuze thinks that Masha is very strange, wondering if she's always like this, and assuming that Alia must have a lot of problems with her. They arrive at another shop, where Masha hands him the stuffed toy while she does the shopping inside. Kuze grabs the cat and hugs it, while Masha comments that they look very good together. She even tries to take a picture, but Kuze says no and covers the camera with the bag, reminding her that they came for the teas. Once inside, Masha asks which tea he likes best, but he responds that he doesn't know much about black tea. He thinks that Yuki would likely intervene since their mom taught her a lot about it. However, having that in mind also brings up unpleasant memories, like when his father told him that he and his mom were getting divorced. Back then, Kuze accepted this decision and told his father that he preferred to stay with him. But what happened next was that Yuki said she wanted to stay at home with their mother. While lost in his thoughts, Masha asks if something is wrong. He replies that nothing is wrong, but Masha places her hand on his cheek and says he looks very down. After that, she moves closer to give him a hug, whispering that he can relax and that everything is okay. This leaves Kuze speechless, wondering in his head what he is feeling because it feels very familiar. At that moment, complains that the tea is burning him as it is now stuck to his back due to the hug. Clumsily, she drops the cup of tea, and Kuze's screams of pain can be heard. Now Kuze and Masha return to the student council where Kanaki accepts that she bought that stuffed animal, but does not agree to let it stay there. Then, he thanks Kuze for helping with the shopping, as he doesn't know what would have happened if he had left Masha alone. Taking the opportunity, he asks again if he wants to join the council, to which Kuze again replies no, but agrees to help them from time to time. He doesn't think he's suited for the council, as being there doesn't help him achieve any specific goal, but Kanaki asks what's wrong with that since he became president to win the heart of the girl he liked, a much worse reason than any Kuze might have. This takes Kuze by surprise, and in addition, Kanaki shows him a photo of how he looked before, as he had a less striking appearance than he does now. This was him 2 years ago. His grades were terrible, he was awful at sports, and he didn't like school much. But he had the bad luck to fall in love with one of the 2 great beauties of his year, someone out of his league whom he now refers to as his girlfriend, Shisaki Amamiya, the vice president. He worked his hardest to be a man worthy of being her boyfriend, and presiding over the student council was part of that. So, the point is that you don't need a proper reason to join. Even Masha joined just because Shisaki asked her to. She confirms this is true, but adds that she was already interested in it before, stating that it doesn't matter why you join, but what you do while you're here. You can join for love or friendship, whatever, as long as it makes life easier for the students. Kuze admits that this is a good point, and Kanaki reminds him that, along with Yuki, he has improved things as vice president of the council, so he can hold his head high as he has nothing to be ashamed of. Here, Kuze remembers a day when he was supporting his sister as the council president, where she inspired him to support her just because he was her brother. That's why he ends up telling Kanaki that he will think about it, which Kanaki respects without pressuring him, showing that they will give him all their support when the day comes. Changing the subject a bit, Kuze asks them where Alia is, to which Kanaki responds that she is mediating a dispute between the baseball and soccer teams. Apparently, the baseball team has interscholastic matches during this time, so they need the field for practice. But the soccer team reached the regional preliminaries, so they requested permission to use the field. Therefore, Alia is mediating between the two since neither team wants to give in, and professional scouts are coming to see the baseball team. Usually, Chisaki handles these disputes, but she's busy with important matters for the kendo club, so she entrusted Alia with it to gain experience, though it seems she's having a hard time. After that, Kuze says goodbye and leaves the room, deciding to take a look in case there's a fight. Here we see Alia in the middle of the 2 groups, who are beginning to say unfriendly things to each other. She asks them to calm down, as they won't solve anything by criticizing each other. She proposes training in the park near the river, but this isn't enough to calm them, as neither team wants to use that area. The situation is quite tense, reaching a point where Alia feels very pressured. No one is paying attention to her, believing she doesn't have what it takes to influence people. She starts to remember things, as her past made her think that trusting people means ending up regretting it, so she prefers to do things alone, besides the fact that no one usually keeps up with her. But in saying that, she shut herself off and pushed people away, refusing to speak entirely. And now, she's paying the price for having done so, accepting that no one will listen to someone like her who can only criticize and dictate what's right and wrong, believing she's completely alone. This reality makes her shed a few tears, unable to help it, aware that she chose this for herself, but still finding it hard to accept. That's why she begins to ask for help, begging someone to help her. Although these words are spoken in Russian, a few seconds later the door opens and Kuze enters, greeting her and informing her that he was sent by the council. He introduces himself as Masachika Kuze from the council's general affairs. From this point, we are shown what happened a bit earlier, as Kuze was able to hear the heated discussion between both teams as he arrived at the site. He quickly realizes that this won't end well for Alia, as both sides are very agitated, so they should leave and discuss it on another occasion. He feels sorry for her, but considers it a good experience. He opts to withdraw and let her handle it. However, he manages to hear Alia's cries for help in Russian, complaining that she is alone because she says things in a language no one understands. Despite this, he responds to her plea for help, and that's why he ended up entering the storage room to resolve the matter. They recognize him as the vice president of the secondary school, while Kuze mentions that the president has already informed him of the situation, who gets the field, and who goes to the river. He then proposes that the baseball team train by the river because they have fewer members, but in exchange, the soccer team will send people to help with the process. This causes both teams to remain in disagreement, but Kuzi keeps his gaze fixed on the girls from the soccer team. After a few seconds, they propose helping the baseball team, which causes the baseball team to relax and accept Kuzi's conditions. In the end, the captains of both teams agree as well, resolving the dispute. Finally, Kuze informs them that both teams must go to the council tomorrow with the formal request, while Alia looks at him quite astonished by how he handled the situation. When the two are walking alone, Kuze apologizes to her for intervening and rushing things, as he exposed her. Alia tells him that it's not a problem and asks why he made that proposal, since it was obvious that the baseball team wouldn't agree, and it was as if he knew that the manager would offer to help. And she could clearly notice that, as he was watching her the whole time while the baseball team was complaining. Kuze explains that the manager is dating the captain of the baseball team, and, seeing Alia's surprised reaction, he realizes she didn't know that. He then continues talking about the star of the baseball team, and that beautiful manager. When it became known that they were together, everyone talked about them. The captain didn't say a word the whole time, because he wanted to help his girlfriend, but as captain he also had his priorities. It was strange for her, because she knew the soccer team was too much, so he knew that if he proposed that, she would agree. Thus the baseball team gets the help of some pretty girls, the soccer team can use the school field, and the two of them can have practice dates in the meantime. Alia laughs a little after hearing that last part. Shortly after, they see the president waiting for them, wanting to know if they managed to resolve the problem. Kuze replies that they did, while Alia clarifies that it was all thanks to him. Kanaki congratulates Kuze on his good work, while Kuze asks if he had everything planned and not to play dumb, since his reaction shows he knows what he's talking about. This makes Kanaki admit that he's been found out, and that Kuze is right about having it all calculated. He then asks if Kuze has made a decision, to which Kuze responds affirmatively, accepting the honor of being part of the student council. Kanaki is pleased to hear this and asks him to go to the office immediately. Although Alia doesn't seem very enthusiastic, night falls and Kuze and Alia walk alone towards the exit. Kuze complains that he feels like he's fallen into Kanaki's trap, which he doesn't like, but he believes it's time to surrender to fate. What happened was that Kanaki asked him to fill out the form and submit it tomorrow, since it was too late to complete the process now. At that moment, Alia asks if he's joining the council to run for the elections with Yuki. Instead, Kuze asks what she would do if that were the case, wondering if she would forget about being president, but Alia responds that she wouldn't, determined to be the council president, and even if she has to face him, she won't give up. Kuze already imagined that, as she has always been that determined. Out of nowhere, he tells her that he will make her the council president, and if that's what she wants, he will do everything he can to make it happen. He won't leave her alone, and she can always count on him, so she just needs to shut up and take his hand. This declaration surprises Alia, who, after wiping away her tears, avoids saying anything before taking his hand. Kuze then confirms that now they are a team, while Alia thanks him, and then says something in Russian. These words leave him perplexed. He immediately recalls one of those beautiful childhood moments with that girl he knew, but suddenly he starts complaining of pain because Alia is squeezing his hand too hard. She, angry, asks if he was thinking about another girl since she noticed him smiling quite a bit. Kuze asks how she knew, realizing just after that he's in trouble because he thought of a girl from the past. Changing the subject, Alia then asks if he just told her she could count on him, and immediately started thinking about Yuki. But Kuze clarifies that he wasn't thinking about her. This makes Alia angry again, telling him to shut up and take this if he wants to be forgiven, giving him a good slap. Once she's relaxed and relieved, she helps him up and he is happy since they can finally go home. On the way, he confesses that it's the first time a girl has slapped him, and now he has more experience as a man, while she continues teasing him as usual. A little later, Alia asks how his cheek is, and Kuze responds that it's fine, it just itches a bit. Hearing this, she leans in and gives him a kiss on the cheek. Seeing him in shock, she asks why he's reacting like that, as it wasn't a big deal. Kuze, however, remains stunned, not knowing what that sensation he experienced was. He asks if it shouldn't be cheek to cheek, to which she replies that it's true. When she says goodbye and leaves, he keeps wondering what that was, pleading that she say what she did in Russian at least to understand, as it wasn't a friendly cheek-to-cheek kiss. Not knowing the customs she might know, then she remembers that what she said to him in Russian at the park was, "I like you." She keeps processing this in her mind, struggling to accept that she likes him, trying to deny reality at all costs and convincing herself that she got carried away by the situation. At that moment, Masha arrives, commenting that Kuze is very charming. Now understanding why her sister likes him, Alia denies having any feelings for him, but Masha finds it adorable that she hides her emotions. She also advises her to hurry up and tell him how she feels, or someone else might take him. Alia asks what she's talking about, but Masha just walks away without giving an answer, leaving her confused about it. Now we are with Kuze, who is reflecting reflecting on what happened with Alia, wondering what he was thinking as he feels embarrassed by the events that occurred. He also recalls that she told him she liked him, which could mean she genuinely had feelings for him in Russian, and was not just playing around to see if he understood. He believes that today's events came from the heart, but quickly tells himself that it cannot be true. He tries to convince himself that she was just carried away by the situation just like he was, and that by now she must have regained her senses, and is probably crying non-stop. It is at this moment that he remembers a family argument where his mother reproached his father for not coming home lately due to work. Feeling uncomfortable with this, he thinks that love is a fickle and unreliable emotion, so it is foolish to worry about it. Not thinking much of himself, he decides to support Alia, being aware that she ran away from home and entrusted her last name to Yuki. When he arrives at his apartment, he is surprised to see her shoes, as she had told him she had things to do. He then thinks that if today's events were orchestrated to get him to join the student council, it is clear that Yuki would be involved. Suddenly, he opens the bathroom door, and the first thing he sees is his sister, practically naked, except for a towel. Yuki's first reaction is to scream in embarrassment, calling him a pervert in an exaggerated manner. However, Kuze remains calm and accuses her of having set everything up, and she does not hesitate to admit the truth. But before he leaves, Yuki approaches to stop him and asks if he isn't curious about why she did this. She also tells him that a few minutes ago she realized something very significant. They have been living together for years, but never had the event of him walking in while she was changing. According to her, every sibling goes through this at least once in their lives, but Kuze yells that maybe that happens in too deep. Wanting her to stop her otaku side, Yuki is offended that he is the one saying this and then strikes a pose in the corner to give him a little show. Kuze asks where she is looking, to which she responds that she is looking at a camera that he cannot see. Then she explains that this is her way of making up for playing a trick on him today, but seeing him so uninterested, she tells him he thinks he's very important and serious, but she knows he glanced at her. In a more serious tone, Kuze agrees to share a big secret with her. Blatantly showing skin doesn't attract him at all. The key is catching glimpses. This hits Yuki hard as she realizes she overlooked that detail. Once again, he tries to leave, but his sister stops him to clarify that she isn't fooling anyone. She knows he glanced at her, and with no other option, he admits that he looked at her briefly, causing her to tease him, though he calls her an exhibitionist. Once Yuki gets dressed, she goes with him to his room, asking if the president and Masha have convinced him to join the council. Kuze confirms this is true, but wanting to give her all the details, he also informs her that he has decided to support Alia for the council presidency. After a few seconds of silence, Yuki bursts out, yelling that Alia has played a trick on her and stolen her brother. She again calls him a chest-obsessed monster, asking if it's because her size isn't enough for him, or if he's being dazzled by Alia, even though those details are not confirmed. Flustered, Kuze asks her to stop talking about such things, as it's too graphic. His sister tells him that he needs to open his eyes and know that it's better to appreciate what's close to you, inviting him to come over and hug her. When he refuses, she keeps trying to make him laugh, saying that he will be the first to hug his sister like this. She then mentions she is joking since they already did it when they were younger, but when he says he doesn't remember, she recounts that it happened when he was in second grade. They collided while playing chase, and he accidentally hugged her tightly when he felt embarrassed. Kuze declares that he would remember an event like that, wanting her to stop making up such typical scenarios. In the end, she gets annoyed and asks him to pamper her, to which he agrees and begins to brush her hair. Feeling more relaxed, Yuki brings up the fact that he will be running with Alia, enjoying the idea of a sibling rivalry. Kuze apologizes for this, making it clear that he holds no grudge or anything like that, though she reminds him that she already knows this and that it's because he cares for her a lot. He admits that she is right, making her laugh at seeing him blush. After a few more jokes, Yuki says goodbye and leaves the room, but once alone, she is surprised that her brother has found someone capable of motivating him, feeling a bit sad that it wasn't her, though she doesn't mind, as she isn't gonna lose anyway. The next day, Kuze wakes up and finds it strange that his sister hasn't tried to wake him up as usual, so he thinks the news must have upset her. But when he gets out of bed, a hand grabs his ankle, startling him quite a bit. Yuki peeks out from under his bed to show herself, proving that she is not depressed or anything like that. However, after a few seconds of silence, she asks him to help her out because she is stuck. Kuze responds by pulling the sheets over her, while she complains that they smell like a man and that she is going to faint. Later in the classroom, Alia remains focused on watching Kuze's arrival. She doesn't understand why she feels so nervous about him, as he will surely arrive half asleep as usual. At that moment, Kuze comes in to greet her, and to her surprise, he looks quite dazzled. Observing him closely, she thinks he doesn't seem like his usual self and looks more spectacular, although this is from her point of view. Nevertheless, she tries to downplay it, assuming that at any moment he will fall asleep. But when the class begins, she sees him very focused, which leaves her more confused, starting to believe that he might actually be changing his behavior for her. In the gym later on, Kuze is suddenly hit on the head by a ball, so he leaves the gym to take a break. Alia also steps out to ask if he is okay, and despite him saying it's nothing, she comes closer to measure his temperature with hers. which makes him nervous. In that instant, the first thing Kuze notices is her large bust, recalling if it's true that she has an E-cup, though he remembers there was no confirmation, so they might be even bigger. After that, Alia begins to fix her hair, making her beauty even more striking in his eyes, provoking him so much that he wonders if she's doing it on purpose. He averts his gaze but inevitably looks back at her, demonstrating to his sister that glancing sideways is the best approach. A few minutes later, they both go to get some water, and Kuze sees another incredible display of how attractive Alia looks, getting captivated by the sight. However, the next thing she sees is Kuze dunking his entire head into the water, and he explains that he wanted to literally cool his head. At that moment, Masha arrives and offers him her towel, but when he refuses her help, she wraps him up with it and starts drying him off anyway. As another stroke of luck, Kuze now has a new view of another bust, something that leaves him in shock, since he has never seen anything like this before. The two start conversing, but as they get along well, Alia takes him away and says goodbye to Masha, something that doesn't make Masha happy, but she still shows her kindness to him. As they walk together, Kuze assumes that Alia will insult him as usual, but she doesn't. Instead, Alia turns and asks if he is okay, showing genuine concern about the earlier accident. Kuze responds that he is fine and has no bump, but she extends her hand toward him to confirm it. He steps back to clarify again that nothing is wrong, starting to get nervous as he doesn't understand what is happening and why she is being so kind to him. With some difficulty, he asks if she is being too nice to him today. Alia responds that she is doing it because he has been down all day, so she is just worried about him, nothing more. Understanding her intentions better, Kuze admits that he is still somewhat affected by having disappointed Yuki. Alia clarifies that Yuki is fine, though they are interrupted by the growling of his stomach, prompting him to explain that he left without breakfast this morning. Suddenly, she starts getting annoyed, thinking that for once, he was paying attention in class, but he was just too hungry to fall asleep. He quickly clarifies that it was because he slept well last night, which only angers her more since she had a hard time sleeping after what they went through the night before. In contrast, this clown ignored the whole matter and slept without any issues, giving her an intimidating look as she couldn't contain her anger. This scares Kuze, who changes the subject and asks if she knows what the Lord says about turning the other cheek. In response, Alia tells him that she is just looking at an idiot and an incompetent fool with disdain, leaving the place indignantly since she worried about him for nothing. On the other hand, Kuze smiles, for she is still the same Alia. Once class ends, he asks her if they can go to the student council office together. Alia says nothing, simply getting up and heading there, still upset, making it even clearer to him that he had gone too far earlier. As they approach the office, they see a group of students apologizing at the entrance. When they leave, Kuze identifies them as members of the football and baseball teams. After that, he approaches the door to try to enter, but is intimidated by a very dangerous-looking girl. Soon after, she apologizes for acting that way, as she thought the baseball and football guys had returned for another matter. This girl is Chisaki Sarashina, the vice president and also Kanaki's girlfriend. It turns out she wanted to resolve the disputes between the two teams, being used to doing so with a firm hand, or rather with her bamboo sword. Kuze already knew about her reputation, but now he has confirmed how formidable she can be. Kanaki asks her to calm down, explaining that Chisaki didn't use violence, only threatened to get violent to make them behave. This makes her complain about putting it that way, while Kuze lets out some rather forced laughs. Despite that, he finds them very adorable, though that image is erased from his mind when she goes from giving pats to giving good smacks on Kanaki's shoulder. Soon after, Masha arrives, and at that moment, Chisaki apologizes to Kanaki for being too rough. He reminds her that he goes to the gym and is in perfect condition so she can hit him as much as she wants. Out of nowhere, a romantic moment is created between the two. Kuze wonders what was so cute about that, and Alia leans into his elbow to whisper not to say that. This makes him smile defiantly, and he tells her that the guys call Chisaki boss, wondering if she wears a sash, because if she does, the guys might call her boss sash. His joke is enough to make Alia start laughing, and Masha praises the good relationship they have. That's when Yuki finally arrives, so Kanaki decides to start the council meeting. With all the members gathered, he asks Kuze to introduce himself first. Kuze stands up and announces himself as Masachika Kuze, who will handle the general affairs of the council, and next year, Alia, and he will run for the elections, hoping to get along well with everyone. Kuze now becomes an official member of the council, and Kanzaki asks him to accompany Masha to work. He assumes that Kuze will adapt quickly due to his previous experience, but he still wants him to work with the others while learning how everything operates since they are short on people. At this point, Yuki interrupts to announce that she is going to speak with the art club about their exhibition, and knowing that they will discuss the budget, she wants Aliyah to accompany her. Aliyah accepts without any issues, and they both leave the room. As they are walking down the hallway, Aliyah thinks she should bring up the topic herself, herself regarding Kuze's decision to support her. For this reason, she asks Yuki if she has a moment to talk, to which Yuki responds affirmatively, inviting her to an empty room for some privacy. Here, Alia tells her that she will run for president alongside Kuze, though Yuki says she already knows this, because he told her last night. Then, Alia explains that this was all she had to say, and that she doesn't plan to apologize because she hasn't done anything wrong. Yuki accepts this without any issues, understanding that Kuze chose this on his own, and that she has no say in the matter, nor the right to take out her frustration on Alia, though she does feel the sorrow of not being chosen by. At that moment, Alia tries to say something but ends up keeping silent, as if she could perfectly interpret what Alia was about to say. Yuki responds that yes, she loves him more than anyone in the world. Alia is stunned by this declaration, and Yuki makes it clear that she is serious, that she loves Kuze even more than her father and mother. She then asks Alia what she feels for him, and Alia replies that Kuze is a very good friend, a very important one, but this answer is not enough for Yuki, so she applies more pressure, asking if Alia likes him, if she is in love with him, since she has already declared her own feelings and now, it's Alia's turn, closing the distance between them even more. Feeling cornered, Alia responds that she can't say if she is in love or not, but she won't let Yuki have him because he is hers. After hearing this declaration, Yuki simply smiles, mentioning that she is satisfied with having gotten all this out of her, and leaves to go to the art club. Before that, she asks if she can call her Alia, and in return, she can call her Yuki. Alia agrees without much thought, and when left alone, she feels as if she has just done something crazy. Returning to Kuze, he realizes how incredibly good Masha is at her work, though he can't say the same for Chisaki due to her clumsiness. Skillfully, Kanzaki sends Chisaki to the library for a supposed book rearrangement, and here he apologizes to Kuze for what he just witnessed, clarifying that Chisaki is more or less always like this, but she is very important in committee and club discussions. Kuze understands this, since everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Masha informs him that they should take a break and starts preparing tea for that. While doing so, she begins to tell him that her family drank tea all year round when they lived in Russia. Kuze knows that her mother is Japanese and accepts the tea with jam as they drink it in her country. Masha asks if he knows much about Russia, to which Kuze responds that he doesn't know much, but he used to watch many Russian movies with his grandfather, though he thinks to himself that this was only the beginning, as he actually studied a lot to talk to that girl from his childhood. After tasting her exquisite tea, he recalls that his mother was also very fond of tea. Moments later, Yuki enters the room with a smile, although Alia does not seem as cheerful, as it seems strange that Alia feels very attached to him. She explains that she is doing this because in Russia, it is believed to bring bad luck for a girl to sit in a corner. It is then that Kuze notices Alia and Yuki exchanging glances, and it appears they are at odds. Trying to ease the tense atmosphere, he asks Masha if what Alia said is true. She responds affirmatively, saying that single people who sit in the corner are believed never to marry. Approaching her sister to ask if she has found someone to marry yet, Alia replies that she hasn't, and did this because she didn't want to sit there. Plain and simple. Moments later, she mentions in Russian that she hasn't even considered marriage yet. So much is Shorana. Kuze finds this quite normal because she is only 15, although the way she said it makes him uneasy. At the end of the meeting, Kanzaki mentions that the second-year students need to talk to the teachers, while the first-year students can go home. Kuze walks Alia home thinking that Yuki must have done something she shouldn't have. He asks if they can take a slight detour because he wants to talk to her about something related to the elections, inviting her to a cafe. Alia agrees without much enthusiasm, complaining in her language that this means it's not a date. Это не свидание, which shocks him as that's what she was expecting. When they are seated at the table, Kuze is a bit taken aback by the large orders of sugar she makes, but he refrains from commenting. She tells him that she is tired and needs sugar to get her brain working. Kuze accepts this justification, changing the topic to finally ask if something happened to Yuki. Alia responds with a curt no, which makes Kuze genuinely worried about what his sister might have done. Suddenly, Alia asks if he is dating Yuki, and Kuze straightforwardly answers no. Seeing Alia's doubtful expression, he explains that Yuki is not the well-behaved and polite girl she pretends to be, and that she is just teasing to see how she reacts. Moving on from that topic, he starts talking about the elections, frankly telling her that right now, they cannot beat Yuki. This is the truth, given how formidable their opponent is. Usually at this stage, there are 3 pairs of candidates, and in fact at the beginning of middle school, their council had 6 pairs, so there were 12 candidates, but half withdrew from the student congress before the elections. Seeing that Alia doesn't understand, he explains that the student congress is like a kind of debate competition between students. If the football and baseball teams hadn't reached a consensus, they would have debated in the student congress to see who won. Alia realizes that this was what she saw in the auditorium and wonders what happened to the half that withdrew. Kuza tells her that when the congress presents the candidates, it becomes a prelude to the elections, where they debate policies, and one side defeats the other, creating a hierarchy in the eyes of many students. Traditionally, candidates face off until the end, and only a couple of pairs or so remain. Not all candidates join the student council, but this year's lack of people is unusual because no one has any hope of defeating Yuki. While talking about this, Alia starts complaining in her head that they are in a cafe. He is with a girl, and he doesn't seem affected at all. Out of nowhere, she begins to devour her ice cream, and he asks if she is paying attention. She clarifies that she was just distracted while eating, which he understands since it looks very delicious. But Alia, in her mind, wonders what he's talking about because she's only like this since he is too serious and boring. Then she gets a great idea. If he doesn't feel like it, she'll make him feel like it. She asks if he wants to try some, and although he says no, she knows it looks delicious and brings the spoon to his mouth. Kuze says he'd prefer to get another spoon, but she complains about calling the staff just for that. Faced with his doubts, Alia becomes more aggressive to make him comply, even saying that this is normal in Russia, though he clearly sees she's lying by her expression. In the end, he eats the ice cream from her spoon, feeling churned inside because it was a deep, indirect kiss. Despite this, he manages to conceal his reaction well, commenting that it is delicious. Once both are more relaxed, Alia asks Kuze how they are going to defeat Yuki. Kuze explains that going head-on against her would be futile and that they need to run a campaign that shows a different approach. He cites President Kanzaki as an example, where one of last year's candidates had presided over the council in middle school, and yet, in the end, Kanzaki emerged victorious. Kanzaki had not even been on the student council in middle school, but he won thanks to a well-thought-out strategy. Apparently, the newspaper wrote about him because they found it amusing that he was running. Initially, they probably just wanted to mock him, but over time, he changed his appearance, and his grades improved. So everyone saw a success story in real time and began to cheer for it. This wave of support led him to victory. From this example, Alia understands that the idea is to have a background story to gain people's support, so the students see that she is working hard and all that. Kuze knew she would grasp what he meant, though in his head, he wonders what to do. The spoon, and Alia is thinking the same. Kuze orders some food, asking the staff to bring another spoon. This makes Alia tell him it's unnecessary, calling him innocent for being embarrassed over such a trivial matter. She thought he was used to female company, but Kuze responds that he is also surprised she is accustomed to this, and asks if in Russia they are used to indirect kisses. Alia responds in Russian that she would only do that with him. And he still isn't used to hearing such things, so he pretends not to understand. Continuing with the topic, Alia asks how they can gain support like Kanzaki did. Kuze explains that they first need to show how willing she is to work hard, and that she has the closing ceremony, meaning the student council speech, which is the first one given before the entire student body. As for what she should say, he advises her to say whatever she wants, as the audience is more receptive if she truly speaks her mind. The ideal is not to lie because she is entirely captivating just as she is. These words catch her off guard, making her blush at the compliment, and she pretends it didn't affect her much. However, she asks in Russian in what sense he means, besides asking him to keep complimenting her. This is exactly what Kuze was referring to, and he has no choice but to pretend he didn't understand. At that moment, Kuze notices how good the spicy food he ordered is, and seeing her asks if she wants to try some. Realizing too late that she can't handle spicy food, Alia thinks she can't refuse, because if she does, he will know she doesn't like spicy, forcing herself to accept his offer. Unfortunately for her, the spoonful Kuze scoops up catches a whole chili, and at that moment, mischievous Yuki appears to encourage him to give her that super spicy bite, while angelic Masha advises against it, but evil Yuki headbutts her away. After that, Kuze silently apologizes to Ali, who ends up eating the portion of food as it is. When she takes a bite, she suffers greatly from the spiciness and calls him an idiot in Russian. As they leave the cafe, Kuze shifts her attention from the spiciness by asking what Yuki will do since Kuze won't be with her, meaning she will have to find another partner. Kuze responds that Yuki is too popular on her own, so he doesn't think it matters much, though it has to be someone from the council, he supposes, and admits they will have problems if someone like Sayaka shows up. Seeing that Alia doesn't know who Sayaka is, he explains that he means Sayaka Taniyama. In middle school, she competed with Yuki until the end, when Yuki won the elections, though he finds it strange that she hasn't run for this election. The next day, everyone is in the council room, and Yuki announces that she wishes to introduce someone. Moments later, a girl enters and introduces herself as Ayano Kimishima from Class 1C, who will be joining the student council and handling general affairs. Kuze is quite surprised to see who it is and looks at Yuki with disapproval, especially towards Ayano. When Kuze is walking through the hallways, he gets startled upon suddenly encountering Ayano as she appears out of nowhere. She apologizes for this and then asks him for a moment alone. As they walk, Kuze thinks that Ayano is like a ninja since she always surprises. Once they reach a more private place, Ayano mentions that she heard he's planning to run in the election with Alia, and she wants to know if it's true. Upon learning that it is, she informs him that the master, referring to Kuze's father, has expressed his displeasure with this turn of events. This is because he didn't expect Kuze to oppose Miss Yuki after having left the So surname. This displeases Kuze greatly, as his father had told him that if he left, they would be nothing more than strangers, and he would not be able to recognize Yuki as his sister. Yet now he acts as if they are family, which angers. So, Kuze asks Ayano if his father sent her to confirm whether it's true, but she clarifies that he didn't. She's asking of her own accord, and as Yuki's assistant, her job is to assess any threats since she is the family's servant. Ayano believed that Kuze would never do anything that could sadden Yuki, and asks if she was wrong to trust him. Kuze explains that he didn't run to oppose his sister, but that it's an unwanted side effect. However, he's going to face her anyway, even if Ayano sees it that way. After that, Ayano asks if running with Alia is so important, as it seems he's willing to betray and hurt his sister. Kuze responds that it is because he promised her. He said he would do whatever he could to become president. Ayano asks if he's doing it because he has feelings for Alia, but he tells her no, it's simply something he decided to do. He also asks her to tell his father something that he doesn't blame him for this, and if he has any issues, he should come and say it to his face. This surprises Ayano, who agrees to fulfill his request without hesitation. Wanting to ask one last question, Ayano inquires if his love for Yuki hasn't changed. Kuze makes it clear that Yuki is still the most important person in the world to him, something that hasn't changed at all, and he asks her to please help her. Later, Kuze is in the classroom with his friends, who have a magazine of girls in bikinis, and ask Kuze about his preferences. After talking about it a bit, he notices Alia's sudden presence beside him, and while holding the magazine, she says in Russian that he's scum, something that deeply hurts Kuze. After that awkward moment, Takeshi asks Kuze if he's ever thought about dating Masha, since the girl in the magazine he pointed out as attractive resembles her. Kuze responds that he never has, but avoids giving details, explaining instead that he only wants a girlfriend who can also be his best friend. From her seat, Alia overhears this and comments in Russian that it could be someone like her. To jest такую. Такую как я? Even though she says it in Russian, it affects Kuze deeply, as he understands her perfectly, but he has no choice but to pretend nothing has happened. At this point, Kuze remembers his childhood friend whom he hasn't seen in a long time, and he says that he wants a girl with a sweet smile. Everyone agrees, since they think that people with a cold gaze are distant. While they're giving their opinions on this, you can see poor Alia being overwhelmed by a cold blizzard, as all of this affects her because they are describing her perfect. Kuze tries to warn them not to continue talking about it, as it could hurt her feelings, to which Alia responds in Russian that it doesn't matter because she does have friends. In the end, they try to make up for their comments by saying something nice, but Takeshi ruins it, and Alia ends up confiscating the magazine. Next, we see Ayano visiting Yuki in an empty room, where Yuki asks if she's satisfied. Ayano responds that she is, as she has confirmed that Kuze is still the man she trusts. She also informs Yuki that he still refuses to drop his candidacy with Alia, and asked her to tell the master that if he has any issues, he should say them to his face. Yuki is surprised to hear this, realizing that her brother is serious. Ayano confirms it, adding that his aggressiveness sent shockwaves through her heart. Yuki feels a bit disturbed by this, asking her if by any chance she's in love with. Ayano replies that she idolizes him just as Yuki does, but she doesn't feel anything romantic because she would never have the courage to want to be his girlfriend. After hearing this, Yuki tells her that she's just a masochist, but seeing that Ayano doesn't understand, she uses the example of a perfect maid who worked with the Marquis de Sade. Ayano thanks her for the explanation, declaring that she will continue working to be the best masochist, radiating positivity. This leaves Yuki a bit shocked, as she has just heard something crazy. It's then that Ayano informs her that Kuze also said that she is the most important person in the world to him. In reaction to this news, Yuki runs to the window to open it and take in some fresh air. Once she breathes and manages to calm down, she mentions that she was close to shouting that she loves him right there in the school. She acknowledges that her brother knows how to touch her heartstrings, although she also understands that he is determined to face her, something she likes because it's interesting. Yuki wonders how she will be able to turn the situation around, as the majority of the school is on her side. She even relishes the situation, as she will finally be able to face that prodigy, the greatest talent the Suo family has ever produced. Referring to Kuze, whom she has never been able to defeat in anything, he will face her with a formidable partner, Alia, something that makes her heart dance with joy as she accepts the challenge to face them with all her might. After this, she asks Ayano if she just sounded like a final boss from a video game, revealing her otaku side. In the student council room, the girls are playing cards, where Yuki soundly defeats Alia. Meanwhile, the other council members mentors are analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of each girl, treating it as a game of wits. When Chisaki voices her thoughts aloud about Alia and Masha, she gets startled when Ayano suddenly appears behind her. Kanaki acknowledges that Ayano has a unique way of moving, prompting Kuze to explain that it's due to her grandparents, who served Yuki's family. Ayano adds that this doesn't apply to her parents, as they are office workers, and that she chose this path because she admired her grandparents. It's not a family business. She simply decided to follow this path since the second grade, finding it worthy to serve Miss Ute, although she avoids mentioning Kuze, knowing she must keep the secret that they are related despite almost slipping up. Because of this, Kuze warns her that it can't happen again, although he does so privately. When he looks into her eyes, he feels that she idolizes him with her gaze, something he doesn't understand as he thought she was angry. At that moment, Kanaki asks Ayano if being silent is a necessary skill for being an assistant, to which she replies yes. From there, flashbacks of her past are shown, detailing the tough training she had to endure, something that fills her with pride. Meanwhile, Masha approaches the table, as Alia didn't want her advice and asked to be left alone. By this point, the atmosphere in the game between Yuki and Alia has become very tense, but seeing Kanaki worried, Kuze reassures him, telling him not to worry because he knows Alia is enjoying. Masha also realizes this. When the drinks run out, Masha offers to go buy more and asks Kuze to accompany her. Everyone places their orders, and although it's a lot to memorize, Kuze manages to repeat everything without making a single mistake or forgetting anything, which leaves everyone surprised. Once he and Masha are out in the hallway, she thanks him for offering to run with Alia in the election, saying that it surely made her very happy. Kuze then asks if she intentionally hides her more responsible side from Alia. After a brief pause, Masha explains that she doesn't want to compete with Alia because she has seen how hard she works, and how she always gives her all in everything she does. She loves her a lot for being the way she is. Masha recalls a time when she saw Alia asleep after studying so much, but what she did afterward was to fall asleep beside her. Upon hearing this, Kuze asks if that's why she plays the role of the cheerful and absent-minded older sister, but Masha replies that it's not exactly a role, rather, she doesn't want to live under constant stress, as it can be exhausting and everyone should relax a bit. Although she doesn't deny that she tries to be more relaxed when she's with Alia, she doesn't want her to feel isolated. She reflects that sibling relationships are complicated. They're the closest people to each other, which forces them to compare and compete constant. Kuze thinks that's true and doesn't even need her to say it. He only ends up feeling inferior to Yuki because she never holds back in showing him her love and admiration. He used to think Yuki played the role of a cheerful otaku to appear silly, but he changes his mind upon realizing that she truly is that way. At this point, Kuze tells Masha that she's a good older sister, and she proudly acknowledges it, though she asks him not to tell Alia. She also realizes that, like her, he acts to hide his more responsible side. This catches him by surprise, but he admits that the difference is that he doesn't have a good reason behind it. He only does it for himself, acting lazy so that he can have some peace, and so people will leave him alone. He asks her not to pay too much attention to it, but Masha ruffles his hair affectionate and encourages him with a big smile, which leaves him feeling very embarrassed. This is something that Kuze doesn't understand. He can't quite grasp why she has no trouble piercing through his armor. Later, we see someone call out to Alia in the hallway, introducing herself as Sayaka from Class F, and asking to speak with her alone for a moment. Once they reach a suitable spot, Alia recalls that this girl was Yuki's rival in the middle school elections. Getting straight to the point, Sayaka asks if it's true that Alia will be running in the election alongside Kuze. When Alia confirms this, Sayaka accuses her of making a very low mood, asking if she's ashamed, as she stole the partner Yuki wanted to run with. This offends Alia because she doesn't understand what she did wrong. Sayaka mentions that she doesn't know what tricks Alia used, but the fact is she chose a slacker as her partner, and she can only imagine that it was done to annoy Yuki. Alia denies this, but before the argument can escalate, Kuze notices what's happening and rushes over to ask what's going on. Alia replies that she has no idea, but Sayaka accuses Kuze of doing something underhanded to keep him away from Yuki. Wanting to clear up the misunderstanding, Kuze tells Sayaka that he doesn't know what she heard or who told her, but he decided on his own to run with Alia. Sayaka finds it hard to believe given that they've spent a lot of time together, and she doesn't understand why he teamed up with this girl who appeared out of nowhere. Kuze simply informs her that Yuki accepted his decision and that everything else is a misunderstanding on her part, asking her to apologize to Alia if she said anything inappropriate. In response, Sayaka declares that the bad guy here is Kuze, and after closing the distance between them, she challenges him to the student congress, something that catches the attention of all the students around. She makes it clear that she's not joking, stating that he has no place in the student council at all. When Alia tries to intervene, Sayaka tells her to stay out of it, calling her nothing more than a pretty decoration with good grades. Wanting to defend herself, Alia reminds her that Kuze is with her in the election, so if Sayaka wants to defeat him, she'll have to face her as well. Sayaka accepts the challenge, stating that people people like them don't deserve to be candidates for the council. Now Kuze and Alia Kujo are talking with Kanaki about what happened. They notice that the topic of debate at the school congress will be the review of teachers to be able to access the council. Kuze realizes that this is directed at him since he doesn't have a good reputation among the teachers. Kanaki asks if they are really going to go through with it because he doesn't think they will gain anything from it. Alia clarifies that they will gain something, as if they manage to defeat them, their candidacy will gain legitimacy. Moreover, they insulted Kuze and her, so she plans to make them retract and apologize. Kuze mentions that all of this isn't so bad since he will be able to present the candidacy before the closing ceremony, which he finds acceptable. Kanaki agrees with their decision, so he plans to announce it by the end of the day. Yuki offers to take care of the announcement, wishing Kuze and Alia good luck. Later, they both discuss the strategy to follow. Kuze shows her the path Sayaka Taniyama will take since he knows her quite well. When Alia shows him her countermeasure, Kuze thinks it's good, but advises that it could be more concise. After that, she asks if he has a bad relationship with Sayaka, to which he responds that he prefers to think that it isn't the case. He also feels that there was mutual respect when they worked together, and he has no idea why she said all that. He supposes she thinks he is running in the elections just to cause trouble for fun. Before, Kuze was Yuki's partner, but he stopped working with her when it became clear she was favored to be someone else's partner. He doesn't blame her for doubting his motivations. Hearing this makes Alia realize that the other person he refers to is herself, and that she was the cause of all this. Despite that, she tells Kuze that she plans to make sure they win tomorrow. The next day, both Kuze and Alia are at the entrance of the venue where the debate will take place. At that moment, Sayaka's debate partner approaches to greet Kuze, introducing herself as Nonoa Miyamai. She informs him that she won't be participating in the debate, which is why she seems so calm. After meeting Alia, she says goodbye to them. Kuze comments to Alia that Nonoa is Sayaka's childhood friend, as well as one of the most popular girls in the school with connections in high places. However, he reassures Alia that they don't have to worry about that today, and advises her to focus solely on Sayaka. When Alia steps onto the stage, she realizes the overwhelming number of people in front of her. She wonders if she can handle it and if they won't ignore her like the last time. She tries to encourage herself to go through with it anyway, as she's also doing it for Kuze, who agreed to be her partner. Meanwhile, the students begin to talk, doubting that she can even give a speech and predicting that Sayaka will crush her. Alia feels quite pressured, but suddenly Kuze speaks to her, asking if she really wears an E-cup. This completely shocks her, and after covering herself, she asks him if he thinks this is the most appropriate moment to be asking such things. Kuze justifies himself by explaining that there's no better time to distract her since she can't hit him with so many spectators present. Putting the jokes aside, he asks if she's calmer now, as that was precisely his intention. Then he points out that she's not facing Sayaka, but rather the idealized version of herself, and advises her not to try to be perfect but to do what she thinks is right. He assures her that she can relax, because if necessary, he will take care of everything. These words help her focus, and after that, Kanaki officially starts the school congress. Kanaki announces that the motion is a proposal from Sayaka Taniyama and Nonoa Miyamai, while Alia Kujo and Masachika Kuze are in opposition. The topic is the review of the teaching staff as a requirement to join the council. When Sayaka takes the podium, she addresses everyone, explaining how currently the council staff selects the president and vice president, but the truth is that they accept anyone who volunteers, as confirmed by a survey of former council members, showing that this has happened in the past 3 years. Kuze didn't expect Sayaka to have gathered it on this, although he suspects it was Nanao's work. Sayaka continues, explaining that the council should be composed of a select few, and she believes everyone will agree. Once someone joins the council, even if they are a poor student, they will be above the school hierarchy, which she finds unacceptable. Therefore, she proposes that teacher approval should be a prerequisite for joining the council, which would ensure that only those recommended by the teachers, who truly have talent, become part of the school council. When she finishes her speech, she receives loud applause from the students, and some doubt that Alia can do anything in response. When it's Alia's turn, she recalls Kuze's advice to do what feels right, which helps her understand how to proceed. After properly introducing herself, she refutes the motion by arguing that its objective could have the opposite effect, as it would only undermine the authority of the student council. This motion involves taking away the president's and vice president's right to appoint the council members. These two positions hold the highest authority and respect in the council because they are elected by the students through a highly competitive election. As a result of winning these elections, they receive various privileges in the school, the most significant being the right to choose their members. It would not be appropriate to give part of that authority to the teachers, as that would be tantamount to saying that the student council cannot function without the teachers' help. This school school takes pride in respecting the autonomy of its students, and that great amount of power rests on the shoulders of the council. Alia then asks what would happen if all the council members were chosen by the teachers. The president and vice president would no longer be able to select students they trust, nor could they reject the teacher's proposals. As she continues her speech, Kuze notices that she's doing well, observing that the students are beginning to divide between Sayaka's arguments and Alia's. He also mentally tells Sayaka that Alia is doing this on her own, without his help. By the end of her speech, a decent number of students also applaud Alia. From here, Kanaki initiates the debate, with Sayaka being the first to speak. She mentions that, as she said earlier, the student council has recently accepted all volunteers. However, Alia counters by stating that this hasn't caused any problems, so she wants to know what the issue is. Sayaka believes it's crucial for teachers to review the candidates to prevent poor performance, but Alia responds that this decision should be exclusively up to the president and vice president. They can accept their shortcomings and seek help from the teachers, but it's not something that others should decide for them. Seeing Sayaka cornered, Kuze thinks to himself that she chose her opponent poorly, as she focused too much on him and underestimated Alia. Sayaka then asks Alia what would happen if the president and vice president abuse their power. Before Alia can respond, other students start mentioning that Alia is an outsider and shouldn't know anything about the school. Siding with Sayaka, Kuze sees this as a bad turn, suspecting that Nonoa had planned it all along. As a result, Alia loses her focus, forgets what she was going to say, and is completely overwhelmed by the pressure. But before her situation worsens, Kuze steps up to her and pats her on the back, letting her know that she did a good job, and that he will take care of the rest. When Kuze takes the podium, he tells everyone that it seems Alia's vocal cords couldn't handle so much talking, which is what happens when you never talk to people. Then he says he wants to wrap things up quickly so his partner can rest, and he poses the question of whether this debate is really necessary, as he believes they already made their decision when they elected Kanaki as president. Everyone knows that Kanaki was once an underachieving student who barely stood out in class, but he worked hard and became a strong candidate for the presidency. This was only possible because of the system they have, which allows anyone who desires it to lead the council. With nothing more to add, Kanaki moves on to the closing statements and asks Sayaka if she agrees, but she remains silent and then runs out of the room, with Alia following after her. With no other option, Nonoa concedes defeat, implying that they are withdrawing their motion, leading Kanaki to officially conclude the school congress. At this point, the story shifts to Sayaka's thoughts about Kuze and Yuki. When she saw them together, she believed she had found the perfect pair and saw that they had a bond stronger than any other, which made her accept her own defeat. Although she felt some envy when she saw Kuze with Alia, she felt betrayed. Alia manages to catch up to Sayaka and stop her. Through her tears, Sayaka asks why it had to be her, lamenting that Kuze and Yuki were special. That's why she accepted her defeat and gave up on her goal, because it was them. She doesn't understand why everything changed. Alia tells her that if she has something to say, she shouldn't keep it inside, but Sayaka replies that she has no right to say anything, that she feels like a fool. She admits that she placed them on a pedestal, putting all her trust in them, but when she felt betrayed, she took it out on Alia, even though it was all in her head. A few seconds later, Noah arrives to apologize to Alia, assuring her that she'll take care of Sayaka. But before they part, Alia tells Sayaka that even she doesn't know why Kuze chose her over Yuki, but she's determined to make sure it was the right decision, so she'll give it her all. She adds that maybe one day Sayaka will also agree that it was the right choice. After saying this, Alia leaves, and Nonoa comments that Alia is a really good person, something Sayaka also agrees with, acknowledging that Kuze must have chosen her for a reason. Nonoa advises Sayaka to go apologize to Kuze and Alia once she calms down, offering to accompany her. Meanwhile, Yuki is in the control booth overlooking the school congress. She comments that Kuze is too soft, thinking that he could have ended this farce quickly, but chose not to. She believes they won't pose any problems if all they can do is this, predicting that his lack of a killer instinct will be his downfall. When she asks for Ayano's opinion, Ayano says that she thinks Kuze and Alia did very well. Hearing this makes Yuki complain that Ayano doesn't understand anything, arguing that they should exude confidence, have a clouded gaze, and judge their opponents with condescension. That's how the aura of a final boss should feel. She also asks why Ayano thinks she handled all the sound and lighting herself in this heat. At that moment, Ayano asks if having the aura of a final boss wouldn't actually lead to losing in the end, which leaves Yuki speechless, avoiding the question. After this, Alia tells Kuze everything that Sayaka said to her. Then, she asks him why he chose her over Yuki. Kuze explains that he initially teamed up with Yuki because he didn't see himself as capable of refusing her. Part of him wanted to help her with her activities, but he believes guilt was the biggest factor. That's why he felt so trapped. Compared to others who work toward their dreams and aspirations, he was driven solely by guilt, something he finds pathetic, as he constantly undervalued himself. People called him the vice president who moved everything from the shadows, but in reality, he didn't want to be in the spotlight. However, this time, things are different because he he ran for vice president of his own accord because he wanted to be Alia's partner. It wasn't about choosing between Yuki or Alia, and he hopes she understands what he means. Though he admits he's not sure how to explain it, this makes Alia laugh, and she comments that she wishes he could express himself more clearly. Kuze doesn't let her teasing bother him and turns the question back on her, asking why she decided to team up with him. Alia responds that the reason is simple. As she steps closer to him, she explains her reasons in Russian. After a few seconds, Kuze pretends not to understand, asking her what that was. She just laughs and steps away, avoiding giving him the truth, and tells him they should head out. Before leaving the building, Alia asks him about the earlier comment regarding her chest size, which makes him nervous. He stammers that a girl he knows mentioned she wears an E-cup. At that moment, Alia tells him in Russian that it's more or less correct. Почти правильно, leaving him with that thought swirling in his head. Now, Yuki has a family scene where his grandfather, the head of the family, comments on the school congress. He knows that Kuze and the heiress of Taniyama Industries participated. He is also aware that Sayaka competed against Yuki in the student council elections in middle school, so he expected good things from her. However, it seems that she withdrew in the middle of the debate. Whatever the reason, this gave Yuki's campaign legitimacy. At that moment, the grandfather tells Yuki that it doesn't matter who his opponent is, he cannot afford to lose. He also mentions that even though he might not have as much aptitude as Kuze, he should understand that with great power comes great responsibility. These are responsibilities that Yuki cannot escape. After dinner, Yuki's mother, who looked very worried, asks her if she still gets along with her brother, to which she replies that she does. Once Yuki enters her room with Ayano, she asks for permission to hug her. After doing so, she presses her head against Ayano's chest. After that, she comments that she feels better now, because there's nothing better than a good pair of breasts. And finally, they agree on something. Once in class, the classmates talk to Kuze about the success he had at the school congress. They seem to be nosy and want to know more details about it. On the other hand, Kuze notices that Alia isn't very happy, so he decides to steer everyone's questions toward her, giving her all the credit for the victory. The problem is that they don't seem very motivated to talk to her, so Kuze uses another classmate to ask her questions about it, encouraging the others to do the same. However, there comes a moment when they start speaking ill of Sayaka, which Alia doesn't like at all, so she leaves the classroom. Kuze follows her to the student council room, where they talk alone. He asks if it bothers her so much that they are mocking Sayaka, reminding her that both of them know why she did what she did, but that the others didn't do anything wrong. They fought fairly. He tells her there's no need to clarify that it's wrong to speak of her like that. Alia replies that she already knows, but that they didn't defeat Sayaka. She withdrew. Kuze makes it clear to her that if they don't help maintain appearances, the victory at the school congress will have been in vain. Even so, he downplays this, saying that what truly matters is what Alia wants to do. After hearing this, Alia shows her interest in helping Sayaka, and Kuze decides to support her, agreeing to fix the situation so they can go to the closing ceremony more at ease. Alia apologizes because she knows this will give him more work, but he asks her not to worry, reminding her of what he said before, that he would help her with everything. This makes her eyes sparkle, but at that moment, Kuze notices a slight movement from the desk chair, discovering that Kanaki and Chisaki were hiding there. Kuze considers that this situation seems straight out of a romantic comedy, and seeing Alia look at him flirtatiously, he also thinks it's another scene straight out of a romantic comedy. Not content with this, Alia begins to get closer and closer to him, so he has no choice but to divert his attention by asking the two hiding how much longer they intend to stay there. Alia is startled to learn that they had been spying, while they excuse themselves by saying they were looking for something and didn't have time to leave. As they exit into the hallway, Alia nervously says goodbye and rushes off, extremely embarrassed. Later, Kuze goes to the room where Nonoa is to ask her to talk alone in an empty classroom. She tells him that if he wants to go out with her, there she is, though she assumes that's not why he's seeking her out. This surprises Kuze, who wonders if she wouldn't mind if he confessed his feelings to her. Nonoa explains that she said that because she's now free, and wouldn't mind if it were him. However, Kuze advises her that she should go out with someone she truly likes. After hearing this, Nonoa comments that she has never gone out with someone she truly likes, because she doesn't understand anything about love and relationships. Kuze becomes concerned upon hearing this, and despite not wanting to meddle in her affairs, he tells her she shouldn't undervalue herself so much. This surprises Nonoa, as Sayaka told her the same thing, though besides that, she also slapped her. Changing the subject, Kuze mentions that people are speaking poorly of Sayaka, and wanted to see if they could stop it somehow, although he clarifies that it doesn't bother him, but it does bother his classmate. Nonoa asks why he's telling her this, given that she's his enemy, and also points out that he surely noticed she planted people in the audience. Kuze doesn't deny that he already knew, which could risk his friendship with Alia, but Nonoa tells him that she only cares about about Sayaka, so she didn't mind losing everyone else. After that, he talks about how passionate Sayaka is, something that should be a mystery to her, showing interest in why it matters so much to him. Nonoa then explains that it's precisely because of that passion that she stays close to Sayaka, and that Kuze surely knows what it's like to be attracted to someone with a passion one doesn't possess. In the end, she agrees to help him, so Kuze shares the plan. They just need to spread a rumor providing a valid explanation for Sayaka's withdrawal. He knows this might affect their victory, but he makes it clear that he doesn't care, and Nono agrees to take care of it. After she leaves, Kuze mentions Ayano's name while thinking about ninjas, and out of nowhere, she appears behind the desk, which gives him a big scare. Yuki was also there being nosy. She explains that she saw him approaching Nonoa, an enemy, so it was natural to observe what was happening. But when Alia arrives and sees the three of them together, she misunderstands the situation and leaves. Angry, we are then shown Nonoa, who recalls the time when Sayaka slapped her and told her to stop undervaluing herself. The reason she did this was because she saw Nonoa kissing a boy different from the one she had been flirting with. When Nonoa returns to the classroom to talk to her group of friends, she explains that Kuze wanted to talk to her about Sayaka. When they mention that Sayaka left the debate, Nonoa takes the opportunity to clarify that she withdrew because of her, as she was angry with her. The reason is that during the Congress, Sayaka discovered that Nonoa had planted people in the audience. Back with Kuze, he explains to Alia that he just happened to run into Yuki and Ayano there, though she doesn't believe him. Changing the subject, he asks if she wants to study together after class, and she agrees, though she's slightly offended since it seems odd to her that he wants to study. Once they're in the student council room, Kuze asks if she isn't standing a bit too close. Alia wants to know if that bothers him, to which he replies that it doesn't, so he has no choice but to accept it, hoping that no one else sees them like this. As if he had invoked fate, Yuki and Ayano walk in just then, and upon seeing that they're studying, they ask for permission to join. Alia declines their request, but in Russian. When Kuze asks her what she thinks, she agrees without complaints, although she mentions that she would have preferred to be alone, obviously in Russian, which annoys Kuze a little. Later, Alia notices that Kuze is only reading the solutions to the problems, and wonders if that will actually help him prepare for the exams. He responds that getting frustrated with problems he doesn't understand is a waste of time, so he prefers to spend that time memorizing the solutions. Seeing that Alia doesn't quite understand, Yuki tells her not to worry, as Kuze has always been like this, and Ayano supports this. A few minutes later, he asks Ayano if there's anything she doesn't understand in the homework, offering to help her despite her refusal, assuring her that he won't make fun of her or anything. However, Ayano clarifies that she would rather he scolded her and told her she was a waste of air. Naturally, Kuze makes it clear that he won't do that, leaving Ayano disappointed with her strange fetishes. Seeing them talk this way, Alia asks if they are really just childhood friends, as they seem very close even for that. Before Kuze can respond, Masha arrives to greet everyone, and a few minutes later she ends up serving them tea. It's then that Masha notices a book on the table about hypnosis. Immediately, she asks Alia to try it on her, as she wants to be hypnotized, but Alia refuses. Despite Masha's insistence, Alia doesn't relent, so Masha turns to Kuze. He agrees to her request, and after reading the instructions, asks Masha to focus her eyes on his finger. Then, he says the typical hypnosis phrase, assuring her that after a clap she will fall into a deep sleep. What he didn't expect was that Masha would actually fall asleep after the clap. For this reason, he decides to undo the hypnosis, touching her shoulder to wake her up. Once she opens her eyes, she asks why he stopped, as he said he was going to clap. Kuze asks if she really doesn't remember, but she has no idea what he's talking about, implying she doesn't know what happened. Since Alia is skeptical, Yuki suggests she try it herself, as that's the only way they'll know if Masha is telling the truth or not. Alia positions herself to do it, wanting to put an end to this farce. After Kuze repeats the procedure with her and claps, he sees that it was too easy, as Alia fell completely asleep. Yuki wonders why Masha also got hypnotized again, as she fell asleep at the clap, but Kuze has no idea why. In response, Yuki sees an opportunity and declares it's time for an impromptu otaku improvisation, where the theme is that he has hypnotized two beauties. The first suggestion is to make them undress and strip. Ayano suggests making them reveal their darkest and most hidden secrets. Meanwhile, Ku's suggestion is a mental age regression. After discussing which is the best, they see that Ayano's suggestion isn't bad, but Yuki prefers that they become uninhibited and reveal their secrets. Yuki begins to suggest to Alia and Masha that they should feel increasingly free, shedding the restraints of common sense. He instructs them to open up both their thoughts and their actions. Both of them open their eyes and stand up, something Yuki didn't foresee. The two move closer to Kuze, and what happens next is that Masha starts to gently pat both his and Alia's heads, though none of them can quite understand why. Yuki didn't expect Masha to start acting so affectionately toward Kuze, but suddenly, Alia stands up and begins to remove her outer clothing, revealing her undershirt. Masha follows suit. Things have taken an unexpected turn. Kuze tries to bring Alia back to her senses by touching her shoulder, but it doesn't work, as she continues unbuttoning her shirt. Attempt with Masha is equally unsuccessful. successful, and to make matters worse, Chisaki arrives just then. Seeing what's happening, she asks what's going on. Yuki explains that they tried out a technique from a hypnosis book, but now they can't seem to reverse it. Once she understands the situation, Chisaki steps in front of the two and performs a quick gesture with her hands, causing both of them to sit down suddenly. Kuze is left stunned, so Chisaki clarifies that what she did was reset them. A few seconds later, Alia and Masha slowly come back to their senses. Yuki offers to explain, but first suggests that they cover up. As soon as they realize they are partially undressed, they quickly let out a cry of embarrassment. Then Chisaki approaches Kuze, knowing he has seen more than he should, and implies that she might need to reset him as well while cracking her knuckles. Terrified, Kuze quickly refuses, shutting his eyes tightly in fear. Now Kuze is studying, even though he wants to watch an anime that airs at this time, but he controls himself because that would prevent him from studying, and exams start tomorrow, so he tells himself that he needs to get to work. After all, he has to make sure his reputation doesn't affect Alia. Just then, he gets a call from her and asks if something's wrong. Alia replies no, that she wasn't calling for anything in particular, which leads Kuze to suggest that she called because she missed him. Alia, in response, agrees with him in Russian, though he has to pretend he didn't understand, as usual, and asks again what's going on. She reminds him that she had told him he tends to procrastinate when he's alone, so she wanted to know if he was studying. Kuze tells her that he's struggling to concentrate and would like to know how she stays focused in times like these, but Alia has no idea about that. According to her, she never loses motivation, and if he's having trouble staying focused, she suggests making a bet, asking him what his goal is for these exams. Kuze says he wants to be in the top 30, and that sounds good to Alia, who explains that if he achieves that goal, she'll do anything he asks, anything at all. However, if he doesn't, then he will have to do what she asks. Kuze mentions that he's interested in that, but tries to clarify that it's not because he wants her to give him orders or belittle. No, not at all. In the end, he accepts the bet, though he complains that now he knows better how to ignore her comments, and that's going to make her little brother cry. She asks him since when is he her brother, as they're the same age. Kuze explains that he already knows her birthday, which is November 7th, and he knows that because she mentioned it in her introduction she arrived. His is April 9th, so he's already 16 years old. After that, there's an awkward silence, so Kuze quickly says goodbye and hangs up, as she knows he realized that he'd lose his focus. On the other hand, it turns out that Alia called him because she got scared watching a horror series, though she also starts complaining that he didn't tell her about his birthday, which was months ago, leaving her disappointed she couldn't celebrate it. 5 days later, they both finish their exams, and Kuze feels quite good about it, though he notices that she doesn't seem entirely happy. So, he invites her to walk home after class because he wants to talk about the closing ceremony. On the way, he thinks about how she hasn't flirted with him in Russian since that phone call, so something is definitely off. Before bringing up the ceremony, he asks if she hasn't been acting a little differently since the exams began. Alia realizes she hadn't meant for it to show, and Kuze explains that it's not obvious, but he's noticed. Alia takes this as a sign that he cares enough about her to pay attention even during the exams. Kuze admits that, of course, he cares. After all, she's his classmate. Such statements make Alia's nerves rise, as she hasn't stopped playing with a lock of her hair since they started walking together. Then, in a low voice, she asks, "So why didn't you invite me to your birthday party?" Kuze explains that he didn't celebrate it, and that even though it's common in Russia, he hasn't celebrated his birthday since elementary school. Realizing that she didn't know this, he assumes she was really eager to celebrate his birthday with him. However, she defends herself by saying that, in Russia, if you don't invite someone to your birthday, it implies you're not on good terms with that person for the year. Still, that doesn't change Kuze's teasing tone, which embarrasses her. What Alia didn't expect is that Kuze tells her they'll have to celebrate it together. He knows they're 3 months late, but he wants this year to go well for them, making the big decision to have a belated birthday celebration, something they can't miss. This makes her smile, which also makes Kuze happy to see that she took it well. The next day, he waits for her on the street, and a few minutes later, Alia arrives in casual clothes that highlight her beauty. As they walk, Kuze realizes they're attracting a lot of attention, and he mentions this to her. Alia asks him to ignore it, saying it's the price she has to pay for being so beautiful. The way she usually deals with this kind of situation, if someone tries to talk to her, is by speaking to them in Russian until they walk away. Kuze is glad she doesn't let any creeps get close to her, which piques Alia's curiosity as she wonders why he has such a possessive attitude and acts like her boyfriend. Kuze apologizes, explaining that he likes to act like a boyfriend when he's on a date, and Alia dwells on that, pleased by the thought that they're really on a date. She then mentions that it's her first date, but in Russian, and Kuze thinks she means it's her first date with him, as he doubts she's never been on a date. Finally, he takes her to the restaurant where they're going to eat, thinking the place is quite expensive, but at noon they can try a variety of meats at a good price. Before he can explain anything, Alia mentions that this place is great, as she's already been here with her family, which makes Kuze feel a bit disappointed inside. Once they enter and sit down, Kuze begins talking to her about how the closing ceremony is going. First, the presidential candidates explain their policies, and then their peers talk about why they support. Now comes the important part, which is that the event doesn't have a normal voting system, but something similar. After each speech, the audience reacts, and they only applaud the pair they want to support. Alia then understands that some candidates might receive complete silence, and Kuzi confirms that she's right. To be honest, he finds it hard to imagine them receiving the same response as Yuki, so their goal is to maintain a respectable distance, meaning they don't have to beat her. This is a realistic assessment of the current situation. He also tells her that he has to give his speech first. The reason is that the first pair usually doesn't gain anything because the audience waits for the others, so they'll have an excuse ready even if Yuki shows up. Alia doesn't look too pleased about this, but Kuze asks her not to take it that way, as even though they have more options, they still have to get their hands dirty. One of those options is trying to manipulate Yuki and Ayana, which he assumes she wouldn't like, and Alia admits that's true. He explains that it would be very different if those two tried something, but he doesn't think they'd go to such lengths, as they're not like Nonoa. Before Alia can ask what he's implying by mentioning her, they're interrupted by the arrival of the food. Without further ado, he suggests they celebrate his birthday this way. A few minutes later, Alia asks Kuze if he was the one who started the rumor about Nonoa having people planted in the audience. Kuze clarifies that it was Nonoa's doing, and she started it on her own, as it would make people stop criticizing Sayaka so much, but it would cast doubt on the outcome of the Congress. For that reason, he apologizes, saying that there might have been a better way to solve the issue. Alia reassures him that it's fine since she didn't contribute anything and couldn't help, so she has no right to complain. She thanks him for doing that for her, and her kindness makes Kuze show signs of embarrassment, which Alia takes advantage of, teasing him and finding him adorable for reacting that way. He's caught off guard as she's not even bothering to hide it anymore, saying it in Russian. Right after that, Alia wants to give him something as a token of gratitude, offering to feed him. It's clear she's feeling quite confident today, and she only gets this bold when she senses Kuze is embarrassed. After taking a bite of what she offers him, he thanks her, though he's a bit stunned to see that she's still using the same fork she fed him. This surprises him, as before she couldn't even use the same spoon when they tried ice cream together, but now she doesn't seem fazed at all, fully accepting that he's completely in the palm of her hand at this moment. After finishing their meal, Alia suddenly gives him the gift she had hidden. When Kuze sees it's a mug, he compliments her on her great taste and design. However, a few minutes later, he remembers that these kinds of mugs are often sold as matching pairs. Alia is pleased that he picked up on that, confirming that she bought two identical mugs and that she's already using hers at home. Kuze is left very surprised, but Alia asks what he would think if she said that, hinting that she was only joking, completely catching him off guard. The next day, everyone gathers in the student council room. Kanaki announces that there will be a surprise announcement at the closing ceremony where they'll unveil the new summer uniforms, something necessary due to the heat. He also mentions that Chisaki was the most influential in getting this motion approved. Suddenly, a romantic moment occurs between Kanaki and Chisaki, which catches a few people by surprise. On the other hand, Kuze is worried that Masha might still feel uncomfortable about the hypnosis incident. For that reason, he takes advantage of a moment alone with her to apologize for what happened. However, Masha tells him it doesn't matter and that it was her fault for starting the whole thing. She then takes the opportunity to ask what exactly he did to her while she was hypnotized. With some difficulty, Kuze explains patted their heads. Masha feels relieved that it was only that, but she also asks if he saw anything else. Since he doesn't respond immediately, Masha calls him a pervert in frustration. Kuze thinks that apparently Masha gets upset about these things too, but she's not scary at all. In fact, she's adorable. Noticing that he's smiling, she grabs his cheeks until he apologizes, saying that he's truly sorry for what he did. Masha feels satisfied once Kuze finally learns his lesson. A short while later, she says goodbye as she has to leave, and when Kuze returns to the classroom, Yuki greets him, informing him that everyone has already left, meaning they're finally alone. Kuze tells her he's going to look for their grandfather, prompting her to jump on him, asking why he's ignoring her. He quickly reminds her that Ayano is still there, but Yuki dismisses him as unimportant, saying it's been a long time since they've had a moment together as siblings. Yuki lies down on the table in a fetal position, acting like a little girl who feels abandoned. Kuze plays along for a bit, but then asks her to get off the table. However, in a sudden change of attitude, Yuki demands that he pamper her. Since she keeps insisting, Kuze has no choice but to go along with it, getting into character and saying, "Come here, kitty." Yuki can't help but burst out laughing. Seeing that Kuze is a bit annoyed, Yuki clarifies that she was joking and that he did great. Kuze pushes her away as best he can, only to notice a call from their grandfather, who informs him that he needs to go to the school for a parent-teacher meeting. When Kuze arrives at the school entrance, he sees that his grandfather is already there and greets him. His grandfather's name is Tomohisa Kuze, though Kuze finds his outfit a bit strange, thinking only a narcissist or someone in the mafia would dress like that. Once they enter the school, Tomohisa asks if Kuze's father, Kyotaro Kuze, is too busy to attend. Kuze explains that his father was transferred this year to the Japanese embassy in England, so he's very busy. At that moment, Alia exits the meeting, and when Tomohisa sees her, he declares her to be a miracle of Eastern Europe. Kuze apologizes for his grandfather, explaining that he's a bit obsessed with Russia. After that, Kuze has the opportunity to meet Alia's mother, Akemi, who mentions that her daughter has spoken a lot about him and that she practically glows when she does. Kuze is distracted by that comment, and immediately, Tomohisa turns to Alia and asks if she would like to join the family by marrying his grandson. His grandfather's ridiculousness makes Kuze explode, yelling at him to shut up once and for all. Later, when the two women head home and the situation calms down, Akemi asks Alia if she's really thinking of marrying Kuze, to which Alia also tells her to shut up, feeling embarrassed by the conversation. After Kuze finishes his meeting with his grandfather, he runs into his mother in the hallway, which brings back unpleasant memories from his childhood. In a scene change, we are shown some flashbacks about Kuze's childhood where he worked very hard in his studies to bring perfect grades to his mother. On another occasion, he had to give a piano performance in front of an audience, but seeing that his mother wasn't happy, he believed in his little mind that he still needed to improve. After practicing hard to improve his piano skills and other things, his mother abruptly interrupted him, not showing any happiness. This is when Kuze wakes up from his dream, realizing that he has just remembered unpleasant things from his past, and also noticing that he has caught a cold. Shortly after, someone knocks on the door, and he sees it's Alia, who explains that she found out he was sick through Yuki. She also told him that Yuki asked her to bring him some medicine. Kuze silently complains about his sister for not notifying him earlier, and tries to make Alia understand that he doesn't need her to come in, that it's enough to just give him the medicine and leave. But she tells him that Yuki asked her to take care of him, although she later confesses that this is a lie, obviously in Russian. In the end, Kuze allows her to enter, and upon arriving at the room, Alia comments that she's not nervous, but that all of this is new to her, and that it smells like a guy in there, although she says that last part in Russian too. After that, they agree that she will make him porridge. What she does is go to the kitchen and look at recipes, having already put on an apron, and once the porridge is ready, she takes it to the bed. He thanks her for letting him see her dressed like that while enjoying how delicious food is. Alia asks him where his parents are, and Kuze replies that his dad is at work and there is no mom, so they are a single-parent family. Once he finishes the porridge, he says that he will go to sleep now and that she can leave whenever she wants. But Alia doesn't want to. She has no problem staying to study in the living room. Despite Kuze not wanting that, she convinces him to worry more about himself than about her, since he's sick. When he wakes up again, he sees that many hours have passed, and upon leaving his room, the first thing he sees is Ayano in a maid outfit, along with Alia right after. Ayano approaches him and tells him to lean on her body. Because of this, Kuze mentions that now it looks like he has his maid in his arms, so he has to be careful because he could get cancelled. Alia tells her to step away from him, but Ayano refuses since it's the duty of a maid. Hearing this, Alia reminds her that she is a maid, but Yuki's maid, not Kuze's. After getting a little nervous, Ayano manages to excuse herself by saying that Yuki ordered her to take care of him so she can leave the rest to her. Lastly, she points out that it's getting late and that she should go home, all while Kuze internally yells at them to be more tactful. At that moment, Ayano reminds him that he should prepare for tomorrow, which makes Kuze ask what's happening tomorrow, but Alia responds that it's nothing, just going to class, that's all. In the end, she agrees to leave and says goodbye to both of them, although she's not as cheerful as before. Once they're alone, Ayano brings him the broche, which Alia had made, and he confirms that it's very delicious. Finally, bedtime comes, and having Ayano so close to him makes him uncomfortable, so he orders her to go home. This forces her to obey his command, so she leaves the room. The next day, Kuze wakes up feeling better, greeted by Ayano with food and medicine ready. Noticing that class time has already passed, he feels he can relax, but something is still bothering him and he wants to know what it is. So he asks her to hand him the medicine package. Ayano hesitates a bit before obeying, but once she does, he checks and realizes that this medicine causes drowsiness, something she already knew. That's why Kuze asks why she didn't tell him if she was aware of it. Ayano apologizes for her mistake, while he interrogates her, wanting to know if it was Yuki who asked Alia to bring the medicine. Since Ayano doesn't respond to the question, Kuze simply decides to go to school, but she tells him it might already be too late. Kuze quickly heads to school to see what's going on. As he walks down the hallway, he hears some boys talking about how impressive Yuki is, and that Alia isn't on her level. Kuze assumed Yuki wouldn't try anything until the ceremony, so he never thought she would act. He finally arrives at the classroom where Alia is and asks her what happened. She apologizes, saying she made a mistake and ruined all her help. After calming down a bit, she explains that it started yesterday morning when Yuki told her that she wanted to talk. There, Yuki mentioned that Kuze was sick and that normally she would go to see him, but she had to take care of some. Alia offered to go, so Yuki took the opportunity to give her the medicine and Kuze's address. After that, Yuki asks her if she would like to appear as a guest on tomorrow's broadcast at lunchtime. She was thinking of discussing the recent school congress, as it's a good opportunity to boast about their victory. Alia apologizes, saying she doesn't want to bring that topic up again. Yuki then asks her to forget about that and invites her anyway, suggesting they can do the final progress progress report of the trimester instead, while leaning on her to apply more pressure. Alia literally says that would be more acceptable, which Yuki appreciates, as she has finally agreed. Yuki then mentions that they are determined not to take advantage of the school congress victory, realizing it as well. She adds that she's heard rumors about Nonoa cheating, and that she'll let it spread. After clearing all that up, Yuki suddenly tells Alia that she's careless, asking her if she has any intention of beating her or not. Right after, Yuki's smile changes into something completely different, dropping the sweet and kind demeanor she usually shows others. She goes as far as asking Alia if she doesn't feel any sense of danger walking into her territory, claiming that Alia lacks survival instincts and is an easy target. She felt the need to give Alia a warning, making Alia suspect that the broadcast hides something more. Yuki makes her realize that the broadcast is scheduled for the same time when Kuze is sick, suggesting Alia should be more cautious, as Yuki intends to use the opportunity to destroy her credibility. Alia then asks Yuki if she thinks she can always toy with her whenever she's alone, warning her not to underestimate her. Yuki suggests she ask Kuze for help if she wants, but Alia responds that it's unnecessary because she doesn't want to be a burden to him. Determined not to let herself be defeated, Alia explains to Kuze that she prepared herself as best she could, but little things happened after classes ended. We are shown a moment when they spoke before the broadcast started, where Yuki unexpectedly apologized to her, saying she deeply regretted her attitude the previous day. Yuki felt bad for scheming something underhanded against a good friend, and had adopted an aggressive stance to force herself to go all out. She admits it might sound self-serving, but she doesn't want to ruin their friendship. With all this, Alia eventually accepts her apology. After that, Yuki tells Alia that it might sound like an excuse, but there's a reason why she absolutely needs to be president. It turns out she once had an older brother who was far more talented than she could ever be, and both their parents and grandfather had very high expectations for her. They were certain that he would bring great honor to the Suo family name, but one day he left them. As a result, Yuki feels that she must now carry the weight of her family's hopes in place of her brother. Her duty is to finish what he started. This story deeply affected Alia, and right after that, they were notified that it was time to start the broadcast. At that moment, Yuki asked Alia why she wanted to lead the student council, but Alia was unable to answer. Once the broadcast began, Yuki introduced herself as the spokesperson for the student council and proceeded to report on the council's progress. Afterward, she announced Alia as a special guest, though Alia's nerves prevented her from staying focused or acting naturally. Alia continues explaining to Kuze that after that, everything was the same, a disaster. Kuze thinks Yuki was ruthless, playing the villain to get under Alia's skin before dropping the tear-jerking story, "I carry my family's hopes." Alia mentions that she's furious with herself for getting so easily flustered and for not being able to recover. Suddenly, she is interrupted by Kuze's applause, as he points out that she's overthinking it in a bad way, and that Yuki has her exactly where she wants her. Yuki's goal wasn't to be the star of today's broadcast. There were only morning classes, and not many students were left at school. If she had wanted to show off her power, there would have been better opportunities. After reflecting on this for a moment, Alia realizes that Yuki was likely just preparing the groundwork for the ceremony. Kuze confirms this, telling her that Yuki merely wanted to get under her skin and was likely aiming to humiliate her. Alia, frustrated with herself over everything that Kuze just explained, takes a deep breath and tells him that she understands now, thanking for his help. But when she turns to look at him, she is surprised by his smile and asks why he's smiling like that. Kuze hadn't even realized it, and his smile, coincidentally, resembles Yuki's. In response to her question, he explains that he was just thinking about how Yuki made a very clever move against them, and he's not sure why, but the whole situation is giving him chills. Seeing him like this makes Alia blush. She even says in Russian that the look suits something she likes. A little later, Alia talks about how she couldn't respond to Yuki when she asked why she wanted to be president. Yuki is running in the elections for her family, but Alia is only doing it for herself, and she wasn't able to say that. She's embarrassed for hesitating, hating that she couldn't answer with her head held high. Kuze raises his voice slightly, asking her to lift her head, telling her that it doesn't matter if her reasons aren't as noble as Yuki's. He also reminds her of what he said before, that she is captivating just the way she is, and he knows how motivated and hardworking she is. Kneeling in front of her, he asks her to lift her head, assuring her that her charms are in no way inferior to Yuki's. After taking a moment to process what just happened, Alia lets out a small laugh as it almost seemed like he was confessing to her, which causes Kuze to become extremely embarrassed. Alia thanks him because his words helped clear up her doubts. She realizes how absurd it is to compare herself to Yuki, even if Yuki does everything for the spirit of her deceased brother. Hearing this makes Kuze fume internally, as his little sister made Alia believe that he was dead. Before Kuze can try to clarify the truth to her, Nono and Sayaka arrive, so Kuze asks them what they want. Sayaka admits that she knows she's late but sincerely apologizes for her actions and behavior. Nono also apologizes, saying she should have stopped her. Kuze explains that forgiving them is Alia's decision, and Alia says that all she wanted was an apology for the hurtful remarks. However, Nonoa has nothing to apologize for. Alia also mentions explains that they didn't talk about the Congress because she didn't want to claim victory when, in reality, she didn't defeat them. This makes Sayaka realize that Alia is proud, and she tells her that now there are two of them, though Kuze asks what she's planning to do. Sayaka comments that things are what they are and that her reputation will be affected. Kuze asks if she's planning to declare her defeat, and whether she will do it on the radio or during the ceremony. Without waiting for her response, he apologizes to her, saying that as council members, they can't allow her to do something like that at the ceremony, and if she wants to thank Alia, there are other ways to do so. After giving her a suggestion on what she can do, Sayaka asks if he's serious, reminding him that she doesn't want to support them, as she still believes that she should be Yuki. In response, Kuze explains that he chose Alia for a reason, and he thinks she's starting to understand why. In the end, Sayaka agrees to follow his suggestion, with Nonoa also getting involved. Kuze thanks her for the help, telling Alia that this is what they can do now, and that they will be able to defeat them. The goal is no longer to seek a tie, as they attacked first, and now they have to destroy them. Now, Alia and Kuze are practicing the speech she will give. Kuze believes that if she does it like this at the ceremony, there won't be any problems, and seeing her a bit nervous, he reminds her that she did great at the school congress, but she mentions that back then, she was focused on her own thoughts, and tomorrow, they will have an even bigger audience. Even so, Kuze tells her that it doesn't change what they have to do, so she just needs to focus on delivering her message. Alia doesn't think that will work, as she realized this when she saw him speak during the congress, which is why she asks how he manages to captivate the audience like he does. He replies that he wouldn't know how to explain it since a lot of it comes from experience, but he can give her a tip on how to break the ice and grab attention, which Alia listens to and agrees to follow. Moments later, Yuki and Ayano arrive to greet them, and when Yuki sees Kuze, she asks what's wrong with him since he looks scared, but he asks if she's playing dumb, as she should know that her mask is starting to slip. He then points out to Alia that this is how Yuki really is, so she shouldn't be fooled. Yuki asks Alia if she's disappointed in her, but Alia replies that she's not, as she has no reason to be, stating that it's natural for people to act differently in different situations. She also adds that she was serious when she said she wanted to be friends, or at least she thinks so, which Yuki confirms is true. After hearing this, Alia said it doesn't matter, since it gave her the chance to clear her mind. Yesterday she asked Yuki why she wanted to run for council president, and tomorrow she intends to give her answer. Yuki remarks that Alia's frank nature makes her shine and makes her a fascinating person, which causes Alia to blush from such sudden compliments. It's then that Kuze says he's glad that all of this hasn't ruined her friendship with Alia, and Yuki takes this as if he's implying that their friendship was affected. Kuze thinks she's shown a lot of class, but he's not mad at all, since attacking your opponent's weak spot is the most obvious strategy. Trying to express what he's feeling, he doesn't fully understand it, but it's as if he wants to pat his dog on the head for daring to bite him, and teach it a lesson so it doesn't try again. Such indirect remarks make Yuki quite tense, and here Kuze continues in a very different tone that if she ever dares to bite him, she'd better sink her teeth in deep. At that moment, President Kanaki arrives along with the other girls, wanting to go over the plans for tomorrow one last time. The only thing left is the order of tomorrow's speeches, so he asks if they'll use rock, paper, scissors to decide, just like last year. Yuki is fine with that, but Kuze refuses, saying that in that game, it's too easy to read the opponent's mind, so they both decide to flip a coin instead. She suggests that Ayano flip the coin, but Kuze, feeling distrustful, declines, and Masha offers to do it instead. After tossing the coin, Yuki starts reflecting on what she wants to do. If she goes first and sets the bar high, she can deliver a decisive blow, but if she goes second, the first speaker will receive polite applause while the audience weighs everything, and it won't be overwhelming. If Alia speaks first, she plans to go all out, but she knows it might be smarter to go second and see what her brother does. When she thinks about her brother, she wonders why he works so hard to intimidate her, something that's not typical of him, as he usually operates in the shadows. Once the coin lands, Alia loses because it comes up the opposite of what she had chosen, leaving Yuki with the decision of whether to give her speech first or second. Before choosing, she reflects on the situation again, considering that what her brother did might have been a ruse, and she wants to figure out why. It's possible he wanted to distract her from something. This leads her to remember Alia, as she had started thinking about her brother suddenly, but her true target has always been Alia, who is mentally fragile. Alia is probably still focused on yesterday's broadcast, and Yuki had even planned to put more pressure on her by making her speak second. Her brother wants to go first, receive applause, and leave it tied, at which point he'll follow his original plan and go for a crushing victory. In the end, Yuki decides to go first, and with that, everything is settled. The closing ceremony begins, where the presentations of the student council take place. Kanaki, Chisaki, and Masha each have to speak individually, but now it's Yuki's turn, which puts the audience on edge, as these are the speeches that really matter. Once she reaches the podium, she introduces herself properly, announcing who she is, and that, in addition, she will be running in the student council elections next year. Without further ado, do. She begins by sharing part of her vision, which is that when she becomes president, she wants to create a school that takes student opinion seriously. This surprises the audience, something she notices, and she then shows them a suggestion box. It has been available in the school for years, but she believes hardly anyone has used it. She has broadcasted many of the suggestions through the school radio, but most of the time the box was empty, which she attributes to the belief that writing something there is a waste of time. It's understandable. The council members are busy with the challenges of their new roles and find it difficult to focus on what students need. However, when she is president, their wishes will come true. Maybe they want to change the sports day events or alter or expand the school festival activities. Introducing new events for Halloween or Christmas could also be fun. These ideas get a very positive reaction from the students. Yuki goes on to say that, as someone who was the student council president in middle school and who is also currently on the council, she has the experience, the background, and the belief that she is qualified to make this happen. After that, she thanks everyone for their time, finishing her speech, and is met with energetic applause from the students. Kuze comments that she's sneaky, saying a lot without really saying anything specific, while Kanaki believes it was a good speech and better than anything he could have done. Suddenly, Ayano steps up to the podium, introducing herself as Ayano Kimishima, the student council's general affairs officer. Outside of school, she serves the Suo family as Yuki's assistant and will be running in the elections next year as her partner. She highlights Yuki's strengths, bringing a few laughs from the audience with her loyal attitude. Seeing this, Kuze realizes that it's a flawless speech, which is why they went first, to close off any advantage. After making sure Alia is okay, he reminds her that this part of the event is called the presentation of the council members, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Introduce her so people can get to know her. Once Ayano finishes and the two formally bow out, it's Alia's turn, the student council treasurer. As Alia approaches the podium, many students begin talking about how well Ayano did, praising Yuki for choosing such a strong partner and assuming that she will be the next president. All of these murmurs are abruptly silenced when Alia suddenly begins speaking to them in Russian, causing absolute silence in the room as everyone focuses entirely on her. After finishing her statement in Russian, she switches back to their language to apologize, saying she was so nervous that she started speaking in Russian. The audience assumes it was a joke and bursts into laughter. At that moment, Alia remembers the advice Kuze gave her the day before. He had told her that if she was speaking second, she should start in Russian, because by the time she gets on stage, the crowd would still be discussing Yuki and Ayano's speeches. Speaking in Russian would throw them off and refocus their attention on her. Now, Alia can't help but smile, realizing that Kuze was absolutely right. Without further ado, she introduces herself again as she should, telling them that she came to this school last year and doesn't have much of a track record to boast about. She believes she still doesn't fully understand how the council works, or what responsibilities the president has. There are many things she still lacks, and she's fully aware of it, but there's one thing she can say with her head held high. She's someone who works harder than anyone. She's always strived to achieve what she believed was the ideal result, because she believes they can't rest on their laurels. They need to improve and aim for the highest goals. She admits that sometimes her motivation has caused discomfort and led to some disappointments, but she learned from her mistakes and helped her class win the award for the best attraction last year. Though of course, she didn't do it alone. She knows she lacks many things to be a good president, and before continuing, she begins to recall certain memories, especially the words of advice Kuze gave her about staying motivated and hardworking, just as she is, so she should keep her head up. With that in mind, Alia tells the students that although she still lacks many things, she's standing here speaking to them with words from the heart and intends to address her shortcomings step by step. If she didn't believe she could be a good student council president, she wouldn't be running in the elections. So, she asks them to keep an eye on her and what she does from now on. That will give her more strength to become the president they need, deserve, and want. Finally, she thanks them for their time. After that, the students' applause slowly begins, growing louder and louder, showing the support they give her for her words. As she steps down, Kuze tells her she did a great job, and when he sees her still uncertain, he reassures her that it was excellent. This gives her some relief, making her feel like the worst part is over. Now it's his turn, so as soon as he reaches the podium, he introduces himself as Masachika Kuze, the General Affairs Officer of the Council. Without beating around the bush, he tells the audience that they might have heard Yuki had a vice president pulling the strings behind the scenes. Well, it turns out that was him. He reveals this information with a dramatic pose, which causes a moment of silence before one of his friends shouts out that this approach won't get him anywhere, making everyone laugh. Putting the jokes aside, Kuze assumes that some may remember he was vice president in middle school, which leads to the next question. Why isn't he running alongside Yuki, and could he be betraying her? Being completely frank, he admits that he has left Yuki. After that, he asks the students what kind of person they think is best suited to be student council president. It could be someone capable yet irresponsible, or someone with strong mental fortitude. However, he disagrees with all of this, and believes that the best person to lead is someone with enough charisma to attract people. He comments that Alia's speech was quite unusual, but at the same time, he believes it was sincere and heartfelt. Alia is a very genuine person, so much so that she used his idea of starting her speech in Russian. He chose her over Yuki because he was drawn to that side of her and wanted to support her, and he would like them to do the same. But the opinion of just one person might not be very convincing, so he's going to tell them a fact. When Alia becomes student council president, Sayaka Taniyama and Nonoa Miyamai will join the council. This causes a surprised reaction from both Yuki and the students. Kuze points out that this is hard to believe, considering that Alia and Sayaka were rivals not long ago. Immediately after, Sayaka and Nonoa arrive to give more credibility to his statement, helping to convince the audience that it wasn't a lie. After that, the four of them line up in front of the audience, and once the speech concludes and they bid their farewells, they are met with strong applause and support from the students. It's at that moment that Kuze tells Alia that this applause was earned by her. After that, they step off the stage and speak with Sayaka, who tells them that she won't be helping with their campaign anymore since they're now even. She hopes not to be disappointed by them. On the other hand, Yuki, watching them from a distance, admits that they played a good hand. She realizes that she made a mistake by trying to win purely through strategy, so she accepts that she must admit defeat for today, but only for today. Later, Kuze and Alia are walking through the hallways, and he asks her what she will request from him since he lost the bet and has to do whatever she asks. She tells him that she'll come up with something, and then, nervously changing the subject, he suggests that she start calling him by his first name, as they've now officially been recognized as a pair to run for the council presidency. Inevitably, they both become extremely nervous at the idea. Great difficulty. Alia finally calls him Masachika. Afterward, as they step outside, Kuze suggests that they meet up during the vacation. Equally nervous and shy, Alia steps closer to him and asks him to look at her, responding cheerfully that it would be a pleasure. That's all for today. Give it a like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Leave Russian in the comments to let me know you watched until the end. See you next time.